The Book of Heaven. Volume 21. I followed the divine will and its deeds in creation. A doubt came to my mind. How can Jesus say that until the kingdom of his will comes to earth, the glory of creation and redemption will be incomplete? How can this be? Doesn't the Supreme Will have the virtue of glorifying itself? She possesses this virtue, and which is more than sufficient for her glory. However, he says that if his will does not extend his kingdom to creatures, his glory, on the part of creation, will be incomplete. I thought this when my adorable Jesus surprised me with a very bright light coming out of him, and said to me, "My daughter, the thing is very clear in itself. Until my will is known and it has his first place of honor and his empire. In every being who comes out of our creative hands, his glory will always be incomplete. The reason for this is very clear. Since in creation, our primary purpose was to give life to this supreme will, so that, be localized throughout creation, it spread everywhere. In the heavens, in the sun, in the sea, in the flowers, in the plants and even in the earth and in each being out of our creative hands. She was constituted the life of everything. Formed his life in all things. My will was be localized in every creature. Pour tu el puis savoir. Autant devise, de regs à dominier. Que de creatures qui viendraient à la lumière. Or ma volonté nest par retirer. Ilny aucun endroit sa vie divine nes attend. Ilnest pas un creature qui ne soit investi de cette supreme volonté. Bietuel attend per tu et investi choc chose et choc creature, lne put pas former sa vie. Comme bien devise divine sunt et defis dans les creatures. Comme bien lui refusant la première place dans leurs actes. Comme bien la placent derrière des actes vils et indignes, lui refusant d'exercer sur el son empire. Estce pour toi peu de choses. La destruction dans les creatures de tant devise divines de ma volonté. La destruction de tant d'actes, nobles et sublimes au point de se sentir anéantir. Alors que ces creatures se servant d'elle. Pour former de déplorables vies humaines déplorables des monstres destinés à l'enfer. Le tort cause à notre gloire par la création est grande et incalculable et tel que. Le biais de la redemption ne pouvait le réparer. Parce que même avec la redemption. L'homme n'est par revenu dans l'unité de notre volonté. Nil regne complètement dans les creatures. Comme bien sont ceux qui se considerant bons, saints, et are divided between the divine will and the human will. Therefore, our glory in creation is not complete. Only when the things created by us will serve to our own will, and to those who will give him the first place of honor, recognizing it in all things. By letting her reign in all their deeds. And by constituting her absolute queen and dominant king, only then will our glory be complete. Do you not believe that it is just and right that given that everything belongs to my will? What is everywhere and for all the first life of all things, all should recognize it and want to become divine will since all belong to it. Imagine a king with his kingdom. All land, houses, and towns are his exclusive property. There is nothing that does not belong to him, not only because this kingdom is heaven, but also by the right of property making these things belong to him. Now, this king, out of goodness of soul, wants to see his people happy and distributes his farms, villas, and lands to them free of charge, providing them with free habitation in his cities so that all can be rich, each according to his condition. And he grants this great good to his people for the sole purpose that all recognize him as king, grant him an absolute empire, and recognize that the lands they occupy have been given to them free of charge by the king so that he can be glorified, recognized, and loved for the good he has done them. And now this people, ungrateful, does not recognize him as king and claims a right of ownership over the lands, denying that they were given to him by the king. Wouldn't this king be frustrated with the glory of the good he has done to his people? And if you add that they use his land without benefit to themselves, That some do not work on them. That others remove the most beautiful plantations. That some make the most pleasant gardens sorted in such a way that they manufacture themselves their own misfortune and misery. All this put together would constitute a dishonor and a pain that no one could appease, to the detriment of the glory of the king. This is only a shadow of what my supreme will has done and still does. No one has given us a penny to receive the good of the sun, the sea, the land. We gave everything for free and only to make them happy and so that they would recognize my supreme Fiat who loved them so much and wants nothing but their love and his reign. Who could compensate this king for the loss of glory that this people did not give him, and appease his immense sorrow? Let us suppose again that someone of this same people, clothed in the just pain of his king and wanting to restore his glory, begins to renovate the land he occupies in such a way as to make it the most beautiful and pleasant garden in the kingdom. Then he will tell everyone that his garden is a gift that the king gave him because he loves it. Then he calls the king in his garden and says to him, "These are your lands. It is right that they are all at your disposal." The king was so delighted with this loyalty that he said to him, "I want you to be king with me and we want us to rule together." Oh! As he sees his glory restored and his sorrow appeased by this member of his people. But this man doesn't stop there. He travels all the paths of the kingdom. And, awakening the people by his word, he leads a good part of them to imitate him and to form the royal people who grant the right to reign to their king. And the king feels restored to his glory and, as a reward, he gives them the title of children of the king and says to them, "My kingdom is yours, rule, my children. This is my purpose, that in my kingdom there are no servants, but my children, kings with me. Cela viendra avec ma divine volonté. Oh! Come elle attend. Qu'elle we soit rendu sa gloire complete dans la création. Qu'elle en reconnaisse que tal we appartient afin de pouvoir dire. It's all yours, let's reign together. Comme bien elle attend que ses connaissances sur le Fiat supreme parcourant les chemins afin. To wake up. To call. To press the creatures to come to my kingdom to constitute my true children to whom I can give the title of kings. That is why I am so interested in making these manifestations of my divine will known. Because this is my greatest act, which is the fulfillment of my glory and the complete good of creatures. I went through all of creation in order to bring all the things created with me before the Supreme Majesty in homage, praise, and worship. Because they are the works of his creative hands, worthy of him. Only who created them. For they are animated by his divine will. But as I did that, I thought to myself, created things don't move, they stay in their place, they don't come with me. So needless to say, I bring them with me, since they do not come. I thought that my sweet Jesus came out of my interior and at the same time showed me my little soul, with many rays centralized in it. They maintained communication with everything created, so that they were in communication with me, and I with them. But the main point of origin from which these rays came was God, who maintained communication with all and all things. And my kind Jesus said to me, "My daughter, where it reigns with its light which no one can resist, because it is immense and penetrating, my will places all things in communication. Each ray departs from the divine center where my will has its main residence. The rays are nothing but the acts that the divine Fiat pulls out of itself to invest everything created. Train his life in as many second homes in each of them. It is natural that for the soul in whom my will reigns, when she forms her actions in my will, all created things receive the communication of this act. On the flight of the same light, they unite to follow the act of this soul in which my will reigns. For they possess one will, one force. Therefore, one is the act they want to perform. It is my will that animates all things and brings together all the acts into one. Therefore, be sure that even if the created things remain in their place, they all follow you. My will itself sets them in motion towards you so that you are not alone, and that they can all accompany you. It's like in a marriage. The bride and groom come forward and are followed by all the guests. You are the bride with whom my will wanted to form her royal marriage. She wanted to break down the division, the obstacles that existed between you and herself in order to form the happiest couple that was ever. So these are days of celebration for you and for my will. Your acts animated by the Divine Fiat are continual invitations that you send to all the things that come out of our creative hands. Consequently, your invitation is extremely broad and no one can refuse it. Because it is a divine will that calls all its works to its banquet. Including even my heavenly mom. And all of them feel honored and triumphant. To attend this wedding and to participate in the wedding banquet of my supreme will. That's why. Await with great impatience your actions, your invitations, your calls. To come and sit at the banquet and celebrate the two spouses. Thus, you walk forward with my will before the supreme majesty, my works follow you back. And it is with justice. Because in created things, it is to the creature that we have granted supremacy over all our works. That is to say, to the creature in whom our divine fiat was to reign fully, not to the creature degraded by his will. This one is the last of all and has no right or communication. While the creature in whom my will reigns has the right to be the first. To call them and to be followed by all the others. The operation of my will is therefore the greatest of miracles. Fullness of all acts together and the triumph of the divine act in the human act. Because my will was as sterile among creatures. She is now made happy by her first daughter. In whom she sees her many births coming into the light. My will therefore no longer live as a barren mother in the midst of her people. But as a fertile mother among all her children. She was once a widow. Because in creating the first man my will embraced human nature. She endowed her with her immense wealth. As the seal of the marriage she formed with man. When he withdrew from her, my will remained a widow for many centuries. But she has now removed the mourning of her widowhood. Married again, she put on her bridal adornment and renewed her dowry. The seal of this dowry is the knowledge of my will as a gift of the riches it possesses. Also, my daughter, be attentive. Take care to preserve your bridal clothes and enjoy the empires that my will has brought you as a dowry. I continued my flight in the divine fiat. My sweet Jesus was seen as he came out of my interior and, joining his hands with mine, he invited me to fight with him. I was so small and didn't feel the ability or strength to fight with him. Especially since a voice came out of a light and said, "She's too small, how can she win this fight?" And Jesus answered, "On the contrary. It is because she is small that she can win. For all the strength is in smallness." I was discouraged and didn't dare to fight with Jesus. He, inciting me to fight, said to me, "My daughter, courage, try. If you win, you will win the kingdom of my will. And you shouldn't stop because you're small. For I have put at your disposal all the force of the things created. Thus, join in your struggle all the strength contained in the heavens, in the sun, in the water, in the wind and in the sea. All of them are fighting me. They fight me to deliver to them the kingdom of the divine fiat. They fight the creatures with the weapons that each has in its power so that creatures recognize my will and may let her reign as they themselves let her reign among them. And in their desire to win, the created things have all placed themselves in order of battle. Seeing that creatures resist, wanting to win at all costs, how they have with them the strength of this will that animates and dominates them. The weapons they possess. They slaughter people and cities with such power that no one can resist them. You can't understand all the strength and power that all the elements contain. It is such that if my will did not restrict them, the battle would be so terrible that they would reduce the earth into a piece of dust. But this force is also yours. Therefore travel the created things to put them in order of battle. May your actions, your continual request for the kingdom of the supreme fiat call all creation to be ready. And my will then acts in her and sets in motion all her deeds so that her kingdom may come among the creatures. It is therefore my will himself that fights with my own will for the triumph of his kingdom. Your struggle is thus animated by my will, which possesses sufficient strength, irresistible to win. Therefore, go and fight. Because you will win. Moreover, your fight for the supreme Fiat kingdom is the holiest that can exist. This is the most just and legitimate battle that can be fought. This is so true that my will itself began this struggle by forming creation. And it is only after a complete victory that she will surrender. But do you want to know when you are struggling with me and I with you? I struggle when I show you the knowledge about my eternal Fiat. Every word, every knowledge, every comparison is a fight and a battle that I fight with you. In order to gain your will. Put it in its place, created by us, and call it, almost by dint of fighting it, in the order and kingdom of my divine will. And when I fight this battle with you in order to subdue your will, I begin it among the creatures. I struggle with you when I teach you the path you must follow, what you must do to live in my kingdom, and the joys you will possess. In short, I fight by dint of light contained in my knowledge. I fight by dint of love and by the most touching examples, so that you cannot resist me. I fight by means of promises of infinite happiness and joy. My struggle is persistent and I never get tired. But to win what? Your will. And with yours. Those who will recognize mine in order to live in my kingdom. And you struggle with me when you receive my knowledge. You place them in order in your soul. To form in you the kingdom of my supreme Fiat. And by fighting with me, you strive to gain my kingdom. Each of your acts performed in my will is a struggle that you deliver to me. In each round through all the things created. To unite with all the acts that my will performs throughout creation, you call upon all creation to fight in order to win my kingdom. You implement my will itself in all created things. To lead the fight against my will itself. In order to establish his kingdom. That is why, in these times, the wind, the water, the sea, the earth, and the heavens are all more in motion than ever. They fight against creatures when new phenomena occur, and how many more will occur? That will destroy people and cities. Because in battles it is necessary to be prepared to suffer losses, and often also from the victor. There have never been conquered kingdoms without a fight. If there were any, they didn't last long. You struggle with me when investing all that I have done and suffered in my humanity, you imprint on it your I love you, and for each of my acts you ask for the coming of the kingdom of my supreme Fiat. Who can say the fight you are waging against me? You bring my own deeds to fight against me so that I can surrender and grant you my kingdom. That's why I fight you and you fight me. This fight is necessary. For you, in order to gain my kingdom. For me, in order to win your will and begin the fight among the creatures to establish the kingdom of my supreme will. I have my own will and all its power, strength, and immensity to achieve victory. You have my will itself at your disposal, all the creation and all the good I have done in the redemption in order to launch a formidable army to fight and win the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. See, every word you write is also a fight that you give me. One more soldier who joins the army that must reach the kingdom of my will. Therefore, be attentive, my daughter. Because these are times of combat. And it is necessary to use all means to win. My poor mind was going through the many knowledges about the supreme will. I thought, why is Jesus so interested in making his divine will known and that it reigns among creatures? I was saying this when my ever-kind Jesus came out of my interior and said to me, my daughter, do you want to know? Why do I want so much to make my will known and that it reigns among creatures? This is the only way to be able to remake the creature and allow us, I, to give, and she, to receive. Until my will returns triumphant and domineering among creatures, I will not be able to give what I want. They will not have the capacity, the space to be able to receive what I can and want to give. In fact, only my will has this virtue, this power. That by establishing the order and balance between the creator and the creature, it opens all the channels of communication between them. She has her royal way to be able to send your donations safely. go down whenever he wants, and to bring, personally, his greatest goods to the creature. The creature, which possesses this same way, can receive it, or mount, in order to take herself what her Lord wants to give her. As rich and powerful as a king may be, if he finds no one to give to, he will never have the contentment, the satisfaction of being able to give. Its riches will remain idle, isolated, abandoned. He may live drowned in his own riches, but he will never have the contentment, the happiness to give and to share with others his possessions, because he finds no one to give them to. This king will be an isolated king, abandoned, without a procession. There will be no one to smile at him, to say a thank you. He will never be at the party, because the feast is to give and to receive. Thus, with all his riches, this king will have in his heart a nail, abandonment, monotony. He will be rich, but without glory, without heroism, without a name. What a pain for this king, with all his riches! Now, my daughter, the reason we made creation and created man was to be able to give our wealth, so that the eternal glory of our works may unite to the internal glory and immense happiness that we possess. Aussi, comme la creature n'est pas dans notre volonté, nous la sentons loin de nous. Personne ne nous entoure pour nous dire merci. Personne pour nous sourire avec délice pour nos œuvres. Tout est isolement. Nous sommes entourés d'immenses richesses. Mais parce que nos creatures sont loin de nous. Nous n'avons personne à qui les donner. Nous n'avons personne pour admirer nos œuvres et pour en jouir. Nous sommes heureux, mais en raison de nous mêmes, et personne ne pourrait le moindrement troubler notre bonheur. Mais nous sommes forcés de voir le malheur des creatures parce que, sans être unis à nous, elles ne peuvent rien prendre et nous ne pouvons rien leur donner. La volonté humaine forme les barrières et condamne les portes de communication. Donner est liberalité, héroïsme, amour recevoir est grâce. La creature, en faisant sa propre volonté, entrave notre liberalité, notre héroïsme, notre amour. Etsi quelque chose est done. C'est toujours de façon restreinte et à force de pressions, d'intrigues. Car lorsque l'ordre est absent entre les creatures et nous, les choses ne marquent pas librement. Nous ne sommes pas capables de souffrir notre être est intouchable par tous les moments si nous étions capables de souffrance, la creature empoisonnerait notre existence. C'est là toute la raison de notre intérêt. À vouloir faire connaître notre volonté et à la faire régner parmi les creatures. Nous voulons donner, nous voulons les voir aux uses de notre propre bonheur. Seul notre volonté peut faire tout cela. Réaliser le dessein de la création et nous laisser mettre nos pieds en commun. Au volonté de Dieu, combien admirable, puissante et désirable tu es. Oh, j'en prie, avec ton empire, fais notre conquête, fais toi connaître et que tu es abandonnant à toi. Deprived of my sweet Jesus, I felt my poor heart painfully crushed. Oh! How he suffered and groaned. Doing my usual round in all creation. To follow in her the acts of her will, having arrived at the sea, I called my Jesus and said to her, my Jesus, come back. Your little girl is calling you into the sea. I call you by the whisper in the immensity of the water. I call you in the silver lightning of the fish. I call you with the power of your will that extends into this water. If you don't want to listen to my voice calling you, listen to all the innocent voices that come out of this sea and call you. Oh! Don't force me to rush you anymore. I can't stand it anymore. But alas, despite all the voices of the sea, Jesus did not come. So I had to continue towards the sun and called him from there. I called him into the immensity of his light. I called him that in all things. I called him in the name of everything created and with his own will that rules over them. Then, having reached the vault of heaven, I said to him, "Listen, Jesus, I bring you all your works. Don't you hear the voice of the whole sky, the countless voices of the stars calling you? They want to surround you and visit their Creator and Father, and you want to send them away." And as I said this, my sweet Jesus came to place himself in the midst of all his works, and he said to me, "My daughter, what a nice surprise you give me today. You brought all my works to visit me. I feel my glory and happiness redouble. Seeing me surrounded by all my works, whom I recognize as my children. You acted like a girl today, who loves his father very much and who recognizes that his father likes to see himself surrounded and visited by all his children. This girl calls them all, and she loves each of them. She gathers all her siblings and surprises her father. Not one is missing and the father recognizes all the members of his family. Oh! How he feels glorified by all his children. His happiness reaches its peak and to fill his joy, he prepares a planturous party. All together, the father and his children are celebrating. In the fullness of his happiness, the father recognizes the daughter who has gathered his whole family to surprise him and bring him so much happiness. This girl will be loved more because she is the reason for such great joy. My daughter, when you called me into the sea with all her voices, I listened and said, "Let her go among all the things created until she has gathered them all, and then I will let myself be found. Thus, I will have all my works that are as many of my children. They will make me happy, and I will make them happy. Life in my will contains indescribable surprises. I can say that where it reigns, the soul becomes my happiness, my joy, my glory. I am preparing for her a banquet of the knowledge of my will. We enjoy being together. We extend the kingdom of the Supreme Fiat so that it may be known, loved, and glorified. That's why I often expect these surprises from my daughter who visits me with my whole family. Moreover, all our divine qualities are spread in creation. Each thing created occupies a function of our attributes. One is the child of our power. The other of our justice. Yet another of our light, of our peace. In short, everything created is the child of one of our attributes. Also, when you bring me the whole of creation, you are the bearer of my happiness spread in her. And I recognize my child in the sunlight, the child of my righteousness in the sea, the child of my empire in the wind, and the child of my peace in the flowering of the earth. In short, I recognize each of my attributes in all things created and I take pleasure in recognizing my children brought to me by the little girl of my will. I do like the father, who has a very large number of children, and each one occupies a place of honor. One is a prince. Another is a judge. Yet another is representative. He is a senator and this governor. The father feels the happiest when he recognizes in each child the high honorific rank that each of them occupies. Thus, just as things were all created to make happy the children of the Supreme Fiat by seeing that you bring us all our works, we recognize in you our purpose. Oh, how we like to see you make your rounds to bring together all our works, in order to bring us the happiness spread throughout creation. Therefore, may your flights into my will be continual." Then, having received Holy Communion, I said to my beloved Jesus, "My love and my life, your will has the virtue of being able to multiply your life for so many creatures that exist and will exist on earth. And I, in your will, I want to form so much of Jesus in order to give you to every soul in purgatory, to every blessed in heaven, and to every creature on earth." I was saying this when my heavenly Jesus said to me, "My daughter, for whoever lives in my will, the divine will multiplies the acts of the soul for as many creatures that exist. The soul receives the divine attitude and its actions become the acts of all. This is exactly the work of the Godhead. An act performed by the soul is multiplied end. Everyone can make this act his own as if it had been performed by himself, although it is only one act. The soul where my will reigns is placed in the same condition as God himself. Whether for glory or for suffering. Depending on whether the creature receives or rejects this act. The glory of this act can bring to everyone the blessing and life of Jesus. This act is great, exuberant, and infinite. The suffering of this. That not all creatures accept this good end. May my life remain suspended without bringing the benefits of my divine life. Is a suffering that surpasses all suffering. Waiting for his return. My kind Jesus makes me suffer. Oh! How my little soul longs for him, and what does it see itself reduced to without him? It is like a land without water and without sun, dying of thirst in such great darkness that I do not know where to take a step to find the only one who can give me water, quench my thirst and make the sun rise to illuminate my steps so that I can find the one who left me. Ah! Jesus! Jesus! Come back! Don't you feel my heart beating in you, calling and struggling to beat without what makes it live, and no longer having the strength to call you? I was saying all that. My greatest good, Jesus, manifested itself in me and made me see three strings. They were assembled and fixed in the depths of my soul. These ropes descended from the sky where they were connected to three bells. I saw Jesus as a little child who, with infinite graces, pulled these ropes that resonated around all came to see. Who rang these bells with such force? To attract the attention of the whole sky. I myself was stunned. Jesus said to me, "My daughter, in the soul where my will reigns, there are three strings of pure gold that descend. The power of the Father, of the wisdom of the Son and of the love of the Holy Spirit. And when this soul works, loves, prays, and suffers, I take in hand the ropes and I set in motion our power, wisdom, and love for the good and glory of all the blessed and all the creatures." The sound of these bells is so loud and so harmonious that it invites everyone to the party. That's why everyone runs to celebrate your act. So you can see that the acts of the soul where my will reigns are formed in heaven in the bosom of your Creator, and that they descend to earth by means of these three strings of our power, our wisdom, and our love, before returning to their source to give glory to the divinity. I enjoy pulling on these strings, so that all may hear the sound of these mysterious bells. After which I heard that the Blessed Sacrament was being exhibited in my church. I told myself that for me, there was no religious service, nor exhibition of the Blessed Sacrament. My sweet Jesus, without giving me time to add another thought, came to say to me, "My daughter, the exhibition of the Blessed Sacrament is not necessary for you. For whoever does my will has the largest end, the most continuous exposure, that my will may have in all creation. In fact, each creature animated by my will forms all the exhibitions that may exist. What forms my divine life in the Eucharist? My will. Without my supreme will that animates the host, there would be no divine life in it. It would be a simple white host that would not deserve the adoration of the faithful. Now, my daughter, my will is exposed in the sun. And everything. As the host is covered with a veil that hides my life, the sun also has a veil of light that hid my life. And yet, who kneels? Who sends a kiss of adoration? Who thanks my will exposed in the sun? No one. What ingratitude! And despite everything, my will does not stop. She continues to do good under her veil of light. It follows in the footsteps of man. It takes its shares. Wherever he goes, his light is before him and behind him. To offer to take him triumphantly into his bosom of light and to give him what is good. And she is willing to give him this good and this light, even if he does not want it. Oh, my will! How much you are invincible, kind, admirable and immutable. To do good tirelessly and without ever withdrawing. Do you see the difference between the exhibition of the Eucharist and the continual exposition of my will in all created things? For Eucharistic adoration, man must disturb himself. He must approach it and be ready to receive its benefits, otherwise, it receives nothing. But for the exposition of my will in the things created, these are the things that go to man. It is she who disturbs herself. And despite the fact that he is not even willing to do so, my will is generous and floods him with his property. And yet, no one is there to worship my eternal will in all its exhibitions. In the sun, symbol of the Eucharist, my will spreads its light, its heat and its innumerable benefits, but always in silence, without ever saying a word or even making a reproach despite the horrible sins she can see. In the sea, however, under the sails of the water, my will presents its exhibitions in a different way. She seems to be speaking in the whispers of the water. It commands respect by the resounding tumult of the breakers. It can overturn ships and take men away without anyone being able to resist. My will in the sea gives an exposure of its power and is expressed in the murmur of the waves. She speaks in the high waves by calling the man to love him and to fear it, and my will, seeing that it is not listened to, made an exhibition of divine justice and changes its sails into storms that irresistibly sweep over men. Oh! If the creatures paid attention to all the exhibitions of my will in the whole creation, they would then still be in an act of worship before my exposed will. In the fields of flowers where she spreads her perfume, in trees loaded with fruit with multiple flavors. For there is not a single thing created where my will does not make a divine and special exhibition. And as the creatures do not give him the honors to which my will is entitled in creation, it is up to you to maintain the perpetual worship of the supreme Fiat exposed throughout creation. You are my daughter, the one who offers herself as a perpetual worshipper of this will, who currently has no one to worship him and who does not receive an exchange of love from creatures. I offered my little acts as a tribute of worship and love to the supreme will. I thought to myself, is it true that all that the soul that lives in the divine will does is made by God himself? My sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, don't you feel me in yourself who follows your actions? Wherever my will reigns, all actions, even the smallest and the most natural, are converted into delights for the creature and for me, because they are the effect of the divine will reigning in it, of a will that cannot produce even the smallest shadow of misfortune. You should know that in creation, our supreme will established all human acts by clothing them with delight, joy, and happiness. Work itself was not to be a labor for man, nor a cause of fatigue, because by possessing my will, he had the strength that never gets tired and never decreases. See how this is symbolized in created things. Is the sun ever tired or weakened from always giving its light? Of course not. Does the sea get tired of whispering, forming waves, feeding and multiplying fish? Of course not. Is the sky tired of expanding? Is the earth tired of germinating and flowering? Certainly not. But why don't any of these creatures get tired? Because there is in them the power of the Divine Fiat whose strength is inexhaustible. In the same way, all human acts performed in the divine will enter into the order of all created things and receive the seal of happiness. Work, eat, talk, every look and every step, everything. As long as man dwelt in our will, he maintained himself holy and healthy, full of vigor and of an inexhaustible energy. He was capable to feel the happiness of his actions and to make happy the one who gave him so much happiness. But as soon as he withdrew from our will, he felt sick and he lost his happiness. its inexhaustible strength and the ability to enjoy the happiness of one's actions. All that the divine will had lovingly granted him. This is also what happens between a person who is in good health and another who is sick. The first, healthy, eats with pleasure, works energetically and likes to have fun, talk and walk. The one who is sick hates eating, does not have the strength to work, is bored, finds no pleasure in walking and talking, all the unwelcome. His illness turned his human nature and actions into suffering. Now imagine that this patient regains health, recovers its strength and finds pleasure in everything he does. The reason for his illness was to have come out of my will. By allowing him to reign again, he will find the order of happiness of his actions and it will allow the divine will to take place there. By offering his work, the food he takes and everything he does, the delight that my will has placed in these human acts reappears and rises to its creator, to restore to him the glory and joy he had arranged in these acts. That is why the soul where my will reigns calls me, not only to work with her, but it also gives me the honor and glory of that joy of which we have clothed all human acts. Same. If the creature does not possess the fullness of the unity of the light of my will, and if she offers all her deeds to her Creator in homage and adoration, because the creature is sick, not God, God will still receive the glory of the happiness of his human deeds. Suppose a sick person confides in a healthy person work that he is unable to do, or that he gives her his food. La personne en bonne santé n'y ressentira pas comme elle est malade. Fatigue de se travail. Ni son de gout pour la nourriture. Au contraire, she will enjoy in the fullness of her health the good, glory and the happiness of this work. And she will gladly take the food that the sick person has given her. In the same way, the offering made to God of man's actions purifies them, and God receives the glory due to him. And in exchange, God allows this glory to descend on the creature that offers him his shares. I felt at the height of sadness because of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus, and I said to myself, my love and my life, you left without even saying goodbye to me and you didn't even show me where I had to go to find you. It even looks like you've muddied the waters, because wherever I go and wherever I go, call you, you don't listen to me. All roads are closed and I am exhausted. I am forced to stop and mourn the one I would like to find at all costs. Ah! Jesus! Jesus! Come back! Come to the one who cannot live without you. As I poured out my suffering, Jesus manifested himself weakly in me. Feeling his presence, I said to him, my Jesus, my life, you made me wait to the point where I can no longer bear it. And if you let yourself be seen, it's only for a moment and you don't even talk to me. This makes the darkness even deeper. I remain there confused and in a delirium of suffering. I look for you, I call you, but it is in vain that I wait for you. Jesus, feeling compassion for me, said to me, my daughter, don't be afraid, I'm here with you. My desire is that you never leave my will and that you continue your actions without ever leaving the limits of the kingdom of the supreme Fiat. This is what will give you the constancy that will make you in the likeness of your Creator. An act has the virtue of continuing endlessly. An uninterrupted act belongs only to God, and his acts know no interruption. Consequently, our constancy is unwavering and our immensity that extends everywhere makes our actions uninterrupted. And wherever we go, we find our constancy. Who gives us the greatest honor, makes us recognized as the Supreme Being, the Creator of all things in whom everything subsists endlessly. My daughter, constancy has a divine nature and it is a divine gift. So it's right. Que nous donnions cette participation et cette dot. Otzella qui doit être la fille de notre divine fiat et qui doit vivre dans notre royaume. In z. En poursuivant sans interruption tes actes dans la divine volonté. Tu montres que tu es déjà en possession du don de notre constance. Combien de choses nous dit la constance? Elle dit qu'elle aime en agit que pour Dieu. Elle dit qu'elle aime agit. With reason and with pure love, and not with passion and self-interest. This soul is conscious and knows the good it is doing. Consequently, be constant in your actions and you will always have our divine constancy in your works. I then continued my actions in the supreme will, and came to the point where I followed the deeds of Jesus. Since the time of his conception in the womb of the Immaculate Virgin, until his death on the cross, my adorable Jesus was heard again. Jesus said to me, "My daughter, my humanity came to earth to reunite the past. In creation the fullness of my will reigned in man. Everything belonged to him. Man had his kingdom everywhere with him, as well as his operative divine life. In me was enclosed the fullness of my divine will. By connecting it to the present time, I became the model, the first to form the remedy, relief and teachings necessary for the healing of creatures. Then I gathered the descendants of Adam to the fullness of this divine will that reigned at the beginning of creation. My coming to earth was that which connected and united all the times, the remedy that formed this link, in order to allow the kingdom of the Divine Fiat to reign again among the creatures. My coming was the model I left for each one, by following it, can remain in the bonds that I created for them. That is why I told you about my coming to earth before I told you about my will. I told you about what I did and suffered to give you remedies and the model of my life. Then I told you about my will. These are links that I have formed in you, and in which I formed the kingdom of my will. As proof of this, there is the knowledge that I have manifested to you. On my will, on his suffering of not reigning in fullness among creatures, and all the benefits promised to the children of his reign. Luisa, I then continued to pray and I felt a little sleepy, when I suddenly heard someone speaking out loud inside me. I looked carefully and saw that it was my beloved Jesus, arms outstretched as if to kiss me. Jesus said to me in a loud voice, "My daughter, I ask you nothing, except to be the daughter, the mother and the sister of my will, and to put in safety in you his rights, his honor and its glory." He said that in a loud voice. Then, lowering his tone and kissing me, he said to me, "The reason, my daughter, for which I want to secure the rights of my eternal fiat, it is that I want to enclose the most holy Trinity in your soul. And only our divine will can provide us the place and glory, who are worthy of us. Then, thanks to her, we will be able to pour out in you all the good of creation, and make things even more beautiful. Because with our will in the soul, we can do anything. Without our will, we would lack the abode where to reside to spread our works and, not being free, we would remain in our heavenly abodes. It is like a king who excessively loves one of his subjects. He wants to come and live with him in his poor hut, but he wants to be free. He wants to dispose in this poor hut all his royal assets. He wants to order. He wants to share with his subject his delicacies and everything that is good. In a word, he wants to live his life as a king. But his servant does not want to be dressed in royal clothes. He does not want the king to reign and refuses to adapt to royal dishes. Where my will does not reign, I am not free. There is a continual conflict between the human will and the divine will. Consequently, without having our rights and safety, we cannot rule and we stay in our royal palace. As usual, I followed the acts of the supreme will in the creation. Arriving at the moment when God created man, I unite myself to the first perfect acts performed by Adam. I continued, after he had sinned, to love and worship with the same perfection that he would have had in the unity of the supreme fiat. But as I did that, I thought to myself, are we entitled to this kingdom of the divine will? And my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, you must know that Adam, before sinning, performed his deeds in the divine fiat. This means that the Trinity had given him possession of this kingdom. To be able to possess a kingdom, it is necessary that there be someone to train him, someone to give it, and someone to receive it. It is the divinity who formed and gave it, and it was man who received it. Adam postate don ce royaume et divin fiat depuis le moment de la création. Comme il était le chef de la génération humaine tout entière. Toutes les creatures ont recueilli ce droit de possession. Même si Adam, en se retirant de notre volonté, a perdu la possession de ce royaume. Because by doing his own will, he went to war with the eternal fiat. Poor Adam! Too weak to fight and without an army capable of fighting against such a holy will whose strength is invincible and who has a formidable army, was defeated and lost the kingdom we had given him. The strength he possessed before the fall was ours, and he even had our army. After his sin, its strength has returned to its source and the army abandoned it to put itself at our disposal. But this did not take away from his descendants the right to reconquer the kingdom of my will. It's similar to what could happen to a king who would have lost his kingdom after losing a war. Is it not possible that one of his sons, by another war, can he reconquer his father's kingdom that he once possessed? It is I, the divine victor, who came to earth in order to reconquer what man has lost. And after finding someone to give this kingdom to, I restore its strength and I put my army at his disposal again, in order to maintain order and glory in this kingdom. And what is this army? Wonderful and formidable army that sustains the life of this kingdom? It is formed of all creation. In everything created, the life of my will has been split. How could man lose hope of reconquering this kingdom? If he had seen this invincible army of creation disappear completely, then man could have said that God had removed from the face of the earth his will which vivifies, beautifies, and enriches his kingdom, and that there was no longer any hope that this kingdom could be returned to him. But also for a long time, that this army of creation exists. It's only a matter of time before we find someone who wants to receive it. Because if there was no more hope of possessing this kingdom of the divine fiat, it would not have been necessary for God to manifest you so much knowledge about him, nor his desire to see him reign, nor the extent of his suffering because he does not yet reign. When something is impossible, there is no need to talk about it, and gen aureus eupar consequent aucun interet. A dire tant de choses concernant ma divine volonté. Le simple fait d'en parler est dans le signe que je veux en redonner la possession. Ma pauvre existence vit sous le pressoir de la privation de monde du Jesus. Les ars semblants des siècles et je resens tout le poids de monde der exil. O monde Dieu! Quelle souffrance! Vivre sans celui qui est ma vie, monde cur et ma respiration. Jesus, quel cruel martyr que ton absence. Tout est irrit et abstru. Comment la bonté de ton tendre cœur peut-elle supporter de me voir si restreint à cause de toi? Estce que mes soupirs net blessent plus? Mes gemissements et mes plaints ontils cessent de te me voir alors tu ils net recherchent que pour trouver la vie? C'est la vie que je veux, rien d'autre, et tu me la refuses. Jesus! Jesus! Qui aurait pu penser que tu allais me laisser seul si longtemps? Oh! Reviens! Reviens! Gene per plus le supporter. J'epenchaisons ma tristesse. Alors monde cher Jesus, ma vi, se manifesta en moi et me dit. Ma fille. Tu es l'impression que j'étais abandonné. Mais ne sentis tu pas ma vie en toi? Ma volonté n'était pas quitte. On the contrary, his life in you had reached its fullness. My will does not give up. Person. Not even the damned in hell where she fulfills her inexorable and irreconcilable justice. For in hell, there is no reconciliation and it constitutes their torment. It is right that anyone who has not wanted it to be loved, delighted, and glorified, should receive it to be tormented. My will does not abandon anyone, whether in heaven, on earth, or in hell. She has everything in the palm of her hand and nothing can escape her, be it man, fire, water, wind or the sun. She governs and extends her life everywhere. She reigns and dominates over everything. If she does not give up anything and puts on everything, how could she ever leave her firstborn daughter in whom his love, his life and his reign are centralized? My divine will extends everywhere and reigns over everything. If the creature loves it, my will then becomes all love and she gives her love. If the creature wants it as life, my will forms in it its divine life and if the creature wants his reign, it forms its kingdom in the creature. My will unfolds its deeds according to the dispositions of the creatures. By its generative power, it regenerates his divine life, his holiness, his peace, its reconciliation and his happiness. It regenerates its beauty and his grace. My will knows how to do everything. It is given to all and it extends everywhere. His actions are innumerable and multiplied to infinity. She gives each creature a new act according to his disposition. Its diversity is inexpressible. Who could escape my will? No one. Could my creation come out of my will or not have been created by us? This cannot be done, since the right to create belongs only to God. That is why my will never leave you, be it in life or in death, or even after death. Even more, that after having regenerated you as his special child, both wills desire his reign. Where my will is, I too am there in full triumph. Can my will be without the person who possesses that will? Certainly not. Don't be surprised if it often seems to you that my life ceases to exist in you. You have the feeling that it's over, but it's not true. This is what happens with the things created. They seem to die, but they are reborn again. The sun seems to die when it sets, but it always stays in its place. This is so true that the earth by turning finds the sun as if it were born to a new life. On earth, everything seems to die, the plants, the pretty flowers, the delicious fruits. But everything wakes up and then acquires a new life. Even human nature seems to die in sleep. But she comes out of her sleep to live a new, more vigorous, and refreshed life. Of all the things created, only heaven remains fixed and never dies, Itis the symbol of the stable benefits of the heavenly fatherland. They are not subject to change. But all the other things, water, fire, wind, everything seems to die, but rises animated by my will which is not subject to death. And who owns this act? Able to make everything wake up as many times as it wants? Although they seem to die, things have a perennial life. By virtue of the regenerative power of my will. That's what happens with you. It seems to you that my life ends in you. But that's not true. Because with my will in you, there is also the regenerative virtue that raises me as often as it desires. Where my fiat is, there can be no of death, nor any benefit that is temporary. But there is perennial life that is not subject to death. I was thinking about the supreme fiat and how this kingdom could come and be realized. My kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, I connected again by my conception the kingdom of my divine will with the creature. My will was to exercise absolute rule. To act freely in my humanity and to extend his kingdom there. Thus, everything I've done, works, prayers, breathing, heartbeat and all my sufferings, everything formed bonds that united the kingdom of my fiat to the creature. I represented the new Adam, who was not only to bring the remedies to save the creatures, but I had to redo and restore what Adam had lost. Consequently, I had to take a human nature in order to enclose in it what the creature had lost and could find through me. Justice demanded. May the divine will have at its disposal a human nature, who does not present any opposition to him, so that the kingdom of my will may again extend his reign among the creatures. A human nature had taken away from my will his right to rule, so it took another human nature to give him back that right. That is why my coming to earth was not only for the sake of redemption. The primary reason was rather to form the kingdom of my will in my humanity, in order to be able to give it back to the creature again. Otherwise, my coming to earth would have been incomplete and unworthy of God. Without a restoration of the original order of things in the work of creation, as it came out of our creative hands, namely, our will reigning over all things, so that the bonds that my humanity had formed with my kingdom are valid and that they have life and knowledge, I had to choose a creature to whom to give the special function to make known this kingdom of my will. Bound by the bonds that my will had formed with my humanity, I gave him the strength to pass on these bonds of my reign to other creatures. Je suis par consequent dans le tréfonds de ton aim pour maintenir la vie du fiat suprême afin de nuire ces liens et d'atteindre son règne. J'en parle beaucoup, c'est que j'en fait pour aucune autre personne jusque maintenant. Par consequent, sois attentive, car il s'agit de quelque chose de très grand. Cesta dire la restauration de l'ordre de la création entre le créateur et la creature. Il fallait également commencer par choisir un creature qui vivrait dans le divine fiat, pour recevoir des actes universals. Car ma volonté est universelle. L'est pour tout. Il n'est pas de creature qui ne recueille sa vie. L'homme nse soustrayant à ma volonté. Origid un bien universal. Il a perdu la gloire, l'adoration et l'amour universals de Dieu. Pour pouvoir retrouver ce royaume et ces bienfaits universals. Il faut premièrement, de droit. Tu un creature vivant dans ce fiat. Communiquer cet acte universal auxiliary autres creatures. Et quand cette creature aimer, adore, rend gloire et prie avec cette volonté. Elle fait naître un amour, un adoration et un gloire universals pour toutes les creatures. Sa prière se diffuse comme si toutes les autres priaient. Elle prie d'une manière universelle. So that the kingdom of the divine fiat may come to establish itself among the creatures. When a good is universal, it is necessary to obtain universal acts and these are found only in my will. Loving in my will. Your love spreads everywhere and my will feels your love everywhere. Feeling followed everywhere. She feels in you the first love. As it had been established in the beginning in the creature to love my will. She feels her echo in your love. Who does not know how to love with a finite and limited love? But who loves with infinite and universal love? My will feels. Adam's first love before his sin. Love that only repeated the echo of the will of its creator. And these universal acts that follow her everywhere make that my will feels drawn to come and reign again among the creatures. My daughter, it is therefore you whom I have chosen, among the descendants of Adam. Not only to manifest the knowledge, the good and the wonders of this fiat, but so that, living in my will and with your universal deeds, you may compel my will to come to reign again among creatures just as at the beginning of creation. It is therefore to you that it is given. To unite all creatures. To kiss them all. That by finding in you all things, for in my will are all things. Everything will be in harmony again. They will exchange the kiss of peace and my reign will be restored among creatures. That is why it is necessary to make known the wonders of my fiat. To arrange the creatures. Attract them and to cause them to desire and desire this kingdom, and to languish after the goods it contains. First you had to choose a creature who would live in my fiat and who, with his universal acts which are divine, would fulfill my will and would implore the kingdom of my fiat for the creatures. I act like a king whose people have rebelled against his laws. Making use of its power, he puts him in prison, sends that one into exile, and removes from this other all his property. In short, everyone has what he deserves according to justice. After a while, the king feels compassion for his people. In his sadness, he chose one of his most faithful ministers and said to him, "You have my trust, and I have decided to entrust you with the mandate to recall these poor exiles, to release the prisoners and to return to all the possessions I had taken from them. If they are faithful to me, I will redouble their possessions and benefits." The king and his faithful minister therefore discussed at length and everything was changed. Especially since this minister was always with the king, praying to him for his people, that he may grant him the grace of forgiveness and reconciliation. Thus, after arranging everything together in secret, they call the other ministers and give them the order to announce to the people, prisoners and exiles, the good news that the king wants to make peace with them, that he wants everyone to take his place and finds all the goods that the king wants to give them. This good news is announced. The people are waiting for him with great desire, and each one is disposed by his actions to receive his freedom and the lost kingdom. As he spreads this good news, the faithful minister is always in contact with the king, urging him with incessant prayers, so that the people may receive the benefits that they have both decided to bestow upon them. That's exactly what I did. For what can be accomplished in the secret of love and suffering between two beings who really love each other cannot be with a large number. A secret pain and the love of your Jesus united with a soul that I choose possess such power. Me, that of giving, and she, to beg for what is necessary. The secret between you and me allowed the maturation of knowledge that I have given you on the kingdom of my divine fiat and has brought up to him your many deeds. The secret between you and me allowed me to pour out my long sadness for all these centuries, where my will, while it was among the creatures and constituted the life of each of their acts, was unknown and remained in a state of continual suffering. My daughter, my suffering poured out in the secret of the heart of the one who loves me, has the virtue of changing justice in mercy and Monday amertum endosur. Je me suis don confia toi et après avoir tout decide ensemble. J'ai appelé mes ministres en leur donnant l'ordre de faire connaître au peuple la bonne nouvelle de Monday fiat supreme. Toutes ses connaissances et elle appelle lance à tout de venir dans Monday royaume, de sortir des prisons, to return from exile of their own free will, and to take possession of the property they had lost, in order to no longer live unhappy and slaves of the human will, but happy and free in my divine will. This secret possessed virtue to make us converse heart to heart. By revealing all the wonders of this eternal fiat long kept secret, their revelation will strike the people, and they will come to pray for my reign to come, which will put an end to all their ills. I was worried about the health of R.P. de Francia. The letters I received from him were almost alarming. I was thinking about the future of my writings. Why was he so keen to take them with him? What will become of them if our Lord would call him back to the heavenly fatherland? the mission of the publication and knowledge of Fiat would not bear any fruit. Because he has done practically nothing yet. It has begun, at most. He has the will to publish them. But it is a very long work and who knows how long it will take. As for the Father, if Jesus reminds us of this at the very beginning of this mission, it will bear no fruit. It will be the same for me if I have the chance to leave for my eternal homeland. What will be the fruits of my mission? What's the point of all these sacrifices, these whole nights spent writing? Jesus' many interests will also be fruitless. For he himself said that a benefit brings fruit only if it is known. Therefore, if these writings are not known, they will be like hidden fruits, without anyone to receive the goods they contain. I was thinking of all this when my Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, if someone has received a mission and that he has barely had time to start filling it out, or that he has not completed it completely and that at this moment I call him to heaven, it is from above that he will complete his mission. It's that he will have in him in the depths of his soul the deposit of the good of the knowledge, which he will have acquired in his life. He will understand it more clearly in heaven. And, understanding the great good of the knowledge of the Supreme Fiat, he will pray and make the whole heaven pray that my Fiat may be known on earth, and will beg for a clearer light to be given to those who will work to make it known. Moreover, every knowledge of my will be one more glory for the soul, greater happiness. As my will becomes known on earth, the glory and happiness of the soul will be redoubled. For it will be the fulfillment of her mission that she wished to fulfill. It's right that as his mission is accomplished on earth, it receives the fruit of this mission. That's why I told him to hurry. I made him careful not to waste time, because I wanted to. Not only that it begins, but that he accomplishes much of the publication of the eternal Fiat's knowledge so that it doesn't have to do everything from the top of the sky. On the other hand, he who has fulfilled his mission on earth can say, "My mission is over." Whoever has not completed his mission on earth must do so in heaven. As for you, your mission is very long and you cannot complete it on earth. As long as all the knowledge about the kingdom of the divine will not be known on earth, your mission will not be over. In heaven, you will have a lot to do. My will, who made you work a lot on earth for his reign, will not leave you without doing anything in heaven and will work with you. She will always keep you company. So you will do nothing but come and go between heaven and earth in order to help establish my reign with decorum, honor, and glory. It will be for you great satisfaction, a great honor and a high glory, to see that your smallness united with my will carried heaven to earth and earth to heaven. You could not receive greater happiness. Much more, you will see the glory of your Creator fulfilled by His creature. Order restored. All creation in its full splendor, and man, our treasure, in his place of honor. What will not be the immensity of our satisfaction, our joy, and our happiness to both of us when we see the purpose of creation realized? We will then give you the title of Redemptrix of our will by constituting you mother of all the children of our Fiat. Won't you be happy about it? Thereafter, I followed the deeds in the divine will, and not finding my sweet Jesus, I told myself that he no longer loved me as before. For he seemed then not to be able to do without me. He was just coming and going, and now he leaves me alone for days on my own. He used to take me to heaven, and then to bring me back to earth, to my great despair. Now it's all over. I thought this when he manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, you offend me by thinking that I don't love you like I used to. This is nothing but the order of my infinite wisdom. You also need to know that my inseparable mother, in her early years, was more often in heaven than on earth, for she was to receive from us seas of grace. D'amour et de lumière. In order to form in it heaven or the eternal word, would be designed and would establish his home. And when heaven was formed in the sovereign queen, it was no longer necessary for her to come so often to the heavenly fatherland, because she had in her what was heaven. I did the same thing with you. What was needed before, is no longer necessary today. And what is better? Possess me in the depths of your soul under the beautiful sky of my will, formed in you. Or visit the heavenly fatherland often. I think it is better to have possession of it. Therefore, what I have done in you for many years was nothing but to form my heaven in you. After training it, it is just that I take advantage of it and that you rejoice with me to have the heaven that Jesus established in your soul. Continuing in my usual state, I followed the divine will in the creation, going from one thing created to another. I called my sweet life, my dear Jesus, that he may come to follow with me the acts of his will in all created things. Not seeing it, I felt the nail of his deprivation pierce me and in my pain, I said to him, my Jesus, I don't know what to do to find you. I ask to your righteousness to call you into the sea and to your power in the crash of the waves, and you do not listen to me. I ask for it in sunlight and to the intensity of its warmth, which symbolizes your love, and you do not come. I say to the immensity of your works in the immensity of the vault of the heavens of call you, and it is in vain. What can I do to find you? If I do not find you in the midst of your works, within the limits of your very will, where can I find my life? I was thus pouring out my sorrow when he manifested himself in me and said to me, how beautiful you are, my daughter! How beautiful it is to see your smallness lost in my will, looking for me in the middle of my works, without finding me. I said to him, my Jesus, you are making me die. Tell me, where are you hiding? Jesus. Je suis cache en toi. Lorsque tu entends la voix de quelqu'un, tu te dis tu en entendant la voix de cette personne, elle doit être près de toi. Ma volonté est l'écho de ma voix. Si tu restes dans ma volonté que tu fais te rendre parmi les œuvres de monde fiat. Tu es déjà dans l'écho de ma voix et je suis alors près de toi ou en toi. Je te fais le don avec monde fiat de te rendre. How far my voice goes and as far as my fiat extends. Surprised, I told him, my love, your voice extends very far because there is no place where your will is not. Jesus added, certainly, my daughter. There can be no will or voice if there is no one to emit them. That is why my will is everywhere. There is no place where my voice, which carries my fiat to everything, does not reach. Consequently, if you find yourself in my will in the midst of my works, you can be sure that your Jesus is with you. I thought after that of the great good that the divine will brings us. While I was totally immersed in her, my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, when the sun rises, it chases away the darkness and brings out the light. The humidity of the night that covered the plants weighed them down and felled them. At sunrise, this nocturnal dew is changed into pearls that decorate all things, plants, flowers, and all nature. Its silver splendor gives them joy and beauty, and drives away the torpor of the night. Its enchanted light seems to help all of nature revitalize, beautify, and come back to life. At night, the sea, rivers, and springs evoke fear. But the sun comes to show the diversity and liveliness of their colors. In the same way, when my will arises, all human acts are clothed with light. They come to take their place of honor in my will. Each of them takes a distinct beauty and the brilliance of divine colors, so that the soul, in transfigured residence and covered with an indescribable beauty, when the sun of my will rises, it disperses all the evils of the soul. He chases away the torpor that the passions had produced. Before the light of the Divine Fiat, these passions themselves are nourished by this light and aspire to be converted into virtue to pay homage to my eternal will. When my will rises, everything becomes joyful. Sorrows are like the sea at night that instills fear. If my will arises, it drives out the night of human will, chase away all fears, and forms in these sorrows a foundation of gold in the soul. She clothes in its light the bitter tears of these sorrows, and crystallizes them in a sea of sweetness, in such a way as to form an admirable and enchanting horizon. Is there one thing my will cannot do? She can do anything and can give it her all. Where my will rises, it brings worthy things to our creative hands. I thought to myself, when I make my round in the supreme will following all its deeds in creation and redemption, I feel like everything speaks to me. Everything has something to say about this admirable will. On the other hand, when I am concerned about other things, everything is silence. It seems that they then have nothing to say. But as I thought that, the sun entered my little room and its light fell on my bed. I felt clothed in that light and warmth. Then a light came out of me and, diving into sunlight, the two kissed. I was surprised, and my sweet Jesus said to me, "My daughter, how beautiful is my divine will split in you and in the sun. When she resides in you and lovingly unites with her works, she rejoices. She immerses herself in the acts she exercises in created things. The light of the soul and the light of my will embrace. And one of them remains, while the other returns triumphantly. Where it comes from? To exercise the function that my will wants to entrust to him. Thus, the soul that possesses my will calls all its actions. When they meet, they recognize each other immediately. That's why, when you make your round in creation and redemption, all things speak to you. These acts are nothing but my will that speaks to you. For it is right that the soul that possesses my will should know its life. It can seem divided and distinct in so many created things. But it is only one act. It is necessary that he who possesses my will become aware of all the acts of my will, in order to form a single act. Then, following the acts that the Supreme Fiat had performed in the redemption, I arrived at the moment when my sweet Jesus was rising from the dead. And I said, "My Jesus, just like my I love you has followed you into limbo to clothe all the inhabitants, and all together we asked you to hurry the coming of the kingdom of the Supreme Fiat on earth. I also want to print my I love you on the tomb of your resurrection. And just as your divine will made your humanity rise up in fulfillment of the redemption as a new covenant, by which thou shalt restore the kingdom of thy will on earth, I want to, with my incessant I love you, who follow the acts you have performed in your resurrection, you ask, pray and implore you to raise your will in souls, that your kingdom may be established among the creatures." I was saying this and other things when my Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, to each of the acts performed in my will, the soul rises in the divine life. The more she accomplishes, the more the divine life grows. This is how the glory of the resurrection is brought to an end. Its foundation, its substance, its light, its beauty and his glory are formed by the acts performed in my will. The more my will comes into contact with the soul, the more it can give it, beautify it and enlarge it. In fact, whoever has always lived in my will always possess the act of my fiat, which is always new, since he reigns over all the acts of the creature. Thus, the creature will receive from God not only the new and continual act of the Beatitudes, but by virtue of my will which she had on earth, she will possess the new act of the Beatitudes which, emanating from herself, will clothe the whole heavenly fatherland. Therefore, the harmony will be such between the new act of God and the new act of the creature who possessed my will, that he will form the most beautiful enchantment of this heavenly sojourn. The wonders of my will are eternal and always new. I said to myself, how is it that Adam, created in such a high place, fell so low after sinning? And my kind Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, in creation, the will that decided to create all things was one. He was just. May my will have his reign and the development of his life in everything. Since she had created them. When man withdrew from our will, there was no longer any one and only will that reigned over the earth. But 2. The human will is inferior to the divine will. Thus it deprived itself of all the assets of the supreme fiat. Man, by doing his own will, has taken the place of the divine will. This was a very great misfortune. Especially since this human will had been created by the divine will so that it would belong to him and could reign over it. But by withdrawing from our will, man has been guilty of stealing divine rights. And the things created by the fiat ceased to belong to him. So he had to find a place outside our creative works, but it was impossible. This place does not exist. And as he no longer had our will, he used the works of our creation to live. He used the sun, the water, the fruits of the earth, all the created. These are all things he stole. Thus, man, by ceasing to do our will, has become the thief of all our goods. How painful it was to see that creation would serve so many deserters. So many creatures that did not belong to the divine fiat. And our will has lost so many places on earth. That creatures that were created to live in our kingdom, under the reign of our will, but did not. This is what happens in a family. When instead of being under the command of the father, it is the children who rule and make the law. And they don't even get along with each other. Some command this, and others, something else. What is not the pain of this poor father when he sees his commandment taken away by his children? What confusion and mess in this family! It was even more painful for my supreme fiat to see the work of his creative hands removed from his reign by the creature which, by doing his own will opposed to his own, took away his right to rule. My daughter, do not do my will. Is evil that includes all evils, and is the collapse of all goods. It's the destruction of happiness, order, peace, and the great loss of my divine kingdom. I felt totally immersed and abandoned in the divine will. I was following his actions when my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, the triumph of my divine will is the soul living in it. When the soul performs its deeds in my will, his virtue spreads over all creation. To spread his divine life, the soul that lives in my will gives me the opportunity to spread my life so many times that the soul performs acts in it. That's why not only does my will triumph in this soul, but it receives more honor than from all creation. In every created thing, God has placed a shadow of its light, a note of his love, an image of its power, or a caress of her beauty. Everything created therefore has something belonging to its creator. But in the soul that lives in the divine fiat, God places everything of itself and centralizes his whole being in this soul. By splitting in this soul, it fills the whole creation with the acts performed by the soul in its will. In order to receive from the soul love, glory, and adoration for everything that comes out of his hands. Creative. The soul that lives in my will establishes a relationship with all the things created, takes to heart the honor of his creator. Thus the soul sends an exchange for all that the creator has done in everything created, from the smallest to the largest. That is why all means of communication are open between the soul and God. The creature enters into the divine order and enjoys perfect harmony with the Supreme Being. That is why it is the true triumph of my will. On the other hand, the soul that is not in my will lives with the human will and therefore closes all communications with the Supreme Being. Everything is mess and discordance. The relationship of the soul is with its passions. Its actions stand out in its passions. She does not understand anything her Creator is saying. She crawls on the earth like a snake and lives in the disorder of human things. The soul that lives in its human will is therefore the dishonor of my will and the defeat of the divine fiat in the work of creation. What suffering, my daughter! What a misfortune that the human will wants to overcome the will of its Creator. A will who loves him so much and desires the triumph of his will in the creature. I complained to Jesus about his privations. Now more than ever, he makes me suffer his absence for long periods of time, and yet he says he loves me. Who knows if he won't end up leaving me for good? I thought this when my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and surrounded me with its light. In this light, he made me see violent wars and revolutions, civilians fighting Catholics. We saw all the races fighting and all preparing other wars. And Jesus, very sad, said to me, "My daughter, thou shalt not know how much my burning heart wants to run with love towards creatures. But in his race, they reject him. On the contrary, they rush brutally against me to offend me with horrible false pretenses. My love being persecuted then calls for my justice. Who defends him and which strikes with plagues those who persecute him? Their false pretenses, towards me, as well as between nations are discovered, and their deception is revealed. Instead of loving each other, they hate each other fiercely. This century can be called the century of the greatest lie with regard to all social classes. Therefore, they will never get along. They pretend to agree. But in reality they are preparing new wars. False pretenses have never engendered a real good, whether in civil or religious matters. There is at most a shadow of good, which disappears. Peace, which is praised in words and not in deeds, is converted into preparations for war. As you can already see, many different races come together for combat. Under one pretext or another, still others will meet. I will use the union of these different races. For the kingdom of my divine will to come, there must be a union of these different races by means of another war, which will extend much further than the last one and where Italy was financially involved. With the union of these races, they will come to know each other. After the war, it will be easier to spread the kingdom of my will. So, be patient to endure my deprivation and the emptiness that my justice wants to form to defend my persecuted love. Pray and offer all this so that the kingdom of my fiat will soon come. I was totally in affliction because of his deprivation and half petrified of pain. Seeing me abandoned by my beloved Jesus, he came out of me and put his hands on my shoulders. He placed his head on my chest and, breathing hard, said to me, "Everyone is waiting for your actions." Then he inspired in him all my deeds performed in the divine will. He added, "My daughter, the acts performed in my divine will belong to me. That's why I came to catch them in my breath. All these acts that you have performed are mine. All are waiting for them, including me, to disseminate them throughout creation and thus receive throughout the universe the honor of a free act of the creature. This will of the creature, freely and unforced, comes into my will and acts. I then receive the honor of a free will, which is for me the greatest honor there is, worthy of a god. A free will that is annihilated in order to make mine end, to act in it, is the great wonder of creation. Everything was created to be at the service of this free will that loves me without being forced to do so. And this will had to reign over all creation and be the will of all created things. Because they did not have a will of their own, the creature was to serve as their will, that the freedom of his will and love may be created in everything created. It is only in my will that the human will can defend us in all things, in order to give this great love to his Creator. My daughter, a will that does not love me freely, but by force, says that there is a distance between the creature and the Creator. It says slavery and servitude. It says dissimilarity. Asterisk on the contrary, a free will that makes mind says that there is a union between the soul and God. It says filiation, and what is God's is also the soul's. She says that there is a similarity of holiness and love. So that what one does, the other does too, and where one may be, we see the other as well. I created man so that he could receive this great honor which is worthy of a God. I don't know what to do with a forced will to love and sacrifice myself. I don't even recognize her and she doesn't deserve any reward. That's why all my eyes are on the soul, who, spontaneously, lives with his will in mine. Forced love belongs to men, not to God. For men are content with appearances and do not descend into the depths. Where is the gold of the will? To find a sincere and loyal love. If a king is content with the subjection of his subjects because they form his army and he does not worry about whether the will of his soldiers is far from him, he will have an army. But he will not be safe. This army may well plot against him and to resent his crown and his life. A lord may have many servants, but if they serve it only out of necessity or fear, or to obtain goods, these servants who eat his food can become his first enemies. But your Jesus, who sees into the depths of the will, is not satisfied with appearances. If this will spontaneously desires to live in mine, my glory and all creation feel safe, because they are not servants, but my children who possess and love my will so much. They are the glory of their heavenly Father. They would be ready and honored to give their lives for his love. I felt totally immersed in his eternal fiat and my beloved. Jesus added, my daughter, in my will, all acts are performed in the fullness of light and they are therefore filled with goods. These acts are complete and they lack nothing. They are so exuberant that they overflow for the good of all. See how, in my will, when you called my heavenly mother, the angels, and all the saints to love me, I have heard repeated in you the love of my mother, of the angels and of the whole heaven. When you called around me the sun, the sky, the stars, the sea, and all the things created to give me back the glory of my works, I felt repeated in you what I did by creating the sun, the sky, the stars, the sea, and all the love I expressed in all of creation. The soul that lives in my will reproduces my actions and gives me back what I have given him. Oh! How much your Jesus loves to see the smallness of the creature give it the honor, love, and glory of his own whole, complete and exuberant deeds. I followed the deeds that the divine will had performed throughout the world. Creation. I was also looking for deeds which she had accomplished in the first father, Adam, as well as all those of the saints of the Old Testament, especially when the Supreme Will had demonstrated its power, its strength and its invigorating virtue. And my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, if the great figures of the Old Testament announced the coming Messiah, they all brought them together. Donations symbolizing all gifts that the children of the Supreme Fiat were going to own. When Adam was created, he was the true and perfect image of the children of my kingdom. Abraham was the symbol of the privileges and heroism of the children of my will. And the way I called Abraham to a promised land where milk flowed and honey, by making him master of such a fertile land that it was the envy of all nations, was the symbol of what I wanted to give to the children of my will. Jacob was another symbol of the 12 tribes of Israel, from where the future Redeemer was to come out, which would restore the kingdom of the Divine Fiat for my children. Joseph was the symbol of the power that would have been that of the children of my will. Just as he did not let others or even his ungrateful brothers starve to death, the children of the Divine Fiat will also have this power. They will be the reason why the people do not perish. All will ask them for the bread of my will. Moses was a figure of power and Samson symbolized the strength of the children of my will. David symbolized their reign. All the prophets symbolized graces, communications, intimacy with God, which would have been even more numerous for the children of my divine Fiat. You see, they were just the figures and symbols of my children. What will happen when all these symbols come to life? After all these came the Heavenly Lady, the Sovereign Empress, the Immaculate, my mother. She was neither a figure nor a symbol, but reality, true life, the first privileged daughter of my will. And in the Queen of Heaven, I have seen the generation of children of my kingdom. She was the first incomparable creature who possessed the integral life of my supreme will. It therefore deserved to conceive of the eternal Word and to bring to maturity the generation of children of the eternal Fiat. Then came my life, in which the kingdom was to be established. What these wealthy children must have owned. You can understand from all this, that in all that God has done since the beginning of the creation of the world, in all that He does and will do, its main reason is to form the kingdom of His will among creatures. This is the main object of our attention, it is our will. And all our property, all our prerogatives and all our likeness will be given to these children. And if I call you to follow the deeds that my will has done, in the creation of the world, as in the generation of creatures, without excluding the acts of my Heavenly Mother, nor those I have accomplished during my life, it is for centralize in you all the acts of my will and to give it to you so that all the goods possessed by a divine will may come out of you. I will thus be able to form with decorum, honor and glory the kingdom of eternal Fiat. Therefore, be careful to follow my will. I thought to myself, how is it that Adam, in withdrawing from the divine will, fell from such a high place to such a low place? And Jesus, manifesting Himself in me, said to me, my daughter, as in the natural order, one who falls from a very high place will die or will remain so deformed and broken that it will be impossible for him to find his previous state, his health, his beauty, and his importance. He will remain a poor cripple, bent, and lame. And if he becomes a father, his descendants will form a generation of the infirm, the blind, the hunchbacked, and the lame. The same is true in the supernatural order. Adam fell from a very high place. He had been placed in such a high place by his Creator that he surpassed the sky, the stars, and the sun in height. Living in my will, he had his dwelling place above all else, in God Himself. Do you see where he fell from? From this height, it is a miracle that he did not kill himself. But if he did not die, the blow he received in his fall was so harsh that it was impossible not to come out of it broken and crippled, his rare beauty become deformed. He had lost all his belongings. He was indolent in his actions and dazed in his understanding. A debilitating and continuous fever weakened all the virtues. He no longer had the strength to dominate himself. Man's most beautiful characteristic, his mastery over himself, had disappeared. Passions took his place to oppress him and make him worried and sad. As he was the father and head of all human generations, he fathered a family of infirm women. Many think that not doing my will is of little importance. On the contrary, it is the ruin of the creature. And the more the creature acts according to its own will, the more the evil grows and the deeper the abyss into which it falls becomes. I thought then in myself, if Adam, by withdrawing from the divine will only once, fell so low and changed his fortune into misery and his happiness into bitterness, what will happen to us who so often withdraw from this adorable will? But my beloved Jesus added, my daughter, Adam fell so low because he has withdrawn from the express will by his Creator, who wanted to experience Adam's faithfulness to his Creator who had given him life and all the goods he possessed. More than that, of all the goods which he had graciously given to her, God had not asked him to deprive yourself of a lot of fruit, but of one, and for the love of the one from whom he had received them. Through this small sacrifice that was asked of him, God had made it known to him that he simply wanted to ensure his love and faithfulness. Adam should have felt honored that his Creator wanted to ensure the love of the creature. Who could have ever believed that the one who was to attract him and cause his downfall was not a being superior to him, but a vile serpent, his main enemy? His downfall led to more serious consequences because he was the head of all generations. It was therefore natural that all its members suffer the effects of their heads. So you see that when it is my express will that is requested and willed, sin is grave and the consequences irreparable, and that only my divine will can repair an evil as great as that of Adam. On the other hand, when my will is not expressly expressed, that there is good in the act of the creature and that it was accomplished purely for my glory, the evil is not so great and it is easier to remedy it. But although my will is not expressly expressed to him, the creature, however, has the duty to pray to know my will in his works. I do this with every creature, in order to test her faithfulness and to be assured of the love she has for me. Who does not want to be assured of the authority that is his before putting everything in writing? Who does not want to have the assurance of the fidelity of a friend or the loyalty of a servant? So, to be sure, I let people know that I want small sacrifices, who will bring with them holiness and all goods. In this way we will realize the purpose for which man was created. On the other hand, if they are reluctant, everything in them will be upset and they will be burdened with all evils. But it's still an evil not to do my will. An evil more or less great according to the knowledge that the soul can have. My poor condition is more painful because of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus. The dear and tender hope of finding my life looks like a hard martyrdom and death. The pain of having lost him stunned, petrifies, and pours out on my soul like a painful dew. Exposed to the rays of a stinging pain, this dew, instead of giving me life, seems to empty me of my vital fluids. It's like jelly on plants. It does not make me die, but it wilts me and takes away the most beautiful thing in my life. Oh, how sweet death would be in comparison! It would be for me the most beautiful party, because I would find the one I love and who can heal all my wounds. Oh, deprivation of my greatest good, Jesus, how painful and merciless you are! This is how, in the adorable will, I ask everyone to mourn my painful fate. I ask heaven with its immensity to mourn the one I am waiting for. I ask the twinkling stars to weep with me until their tears bring Jesus to me and I stop suffering. I ask the sun to convert its rays into tears and its heat into burning arrows to assail Jesus and say to him, "Hurry up, don't you see that she can't take it anymore and that we all shed tears for the one who loves you so much, and since her will is one with ours, we are forced to cry with her." I ask all of creation to express its sadness and to weep with me. Who wouldn't be crying in front of such a great and incalculable pain? That of your deprivation? Oh, how I wish I could deafen you by converting the silver lightning of fish and the whispers of the sea in painful voices. In order to move you, I would like to change the songs of the birds into sighs. Jesus! Jesus! How much you make me suffer! Oh! How much does your love cost me? But as I poured out my sorrow, my sweet life manifested itself in me by telling me, "My daughter, I'm here, don't be afraid. If you knew how much pain I have when I saw you suffering because of me. Your sufferings are more painful to me than all those of the creatures put together. For they are those of our daughter, who is a member of our heavenly family. I feel them more than if they were mine. When our will is in the creature, everything becomes common and inseparable from us." Luisa, I was in pain while I was hearing this. And I told him that if it was true in words, it didn't seem true to me in reality. "How is it done? That you torture me by making me wait for your return, and K ton absence estsi long kjene sais plus k fair ni ver ki me torner, Tu me rends incapable de te trouver or même dans ta volonté. Car l'est si vaste, que tu te caches dans son immensité et te perds la trace de tes pas. Alors, ce sont de bien belles paroles, mais où sont les faits? Si tu as souffert à cause de mes souffrances. You should prove it. Having the kindness to return to the one who knows no other love or life than you. And Jesus, touched, pressed me against him and said, My poor daughter, courage. You don't know everything it means to live in my will. It has the perfect balance. All its attributes are in full agreement. Neither is inferior to the other. When it is necessary to punish the people for their many sins, my justice demands these absences. Where you are deprived of me, so that it can balance itself by sending the scourges they deserve. My justice thus sets you apart in my life. It takes its course in my will. How many times has my groaning humanity not met my righteousness with these obstacles, and yet I have had to give in for the sake of the balance of my will. Would you like to be in my will by breaking the balance of my attributes? No, no, my daughter. Let my righteousness take its course and your Jesus will be with you as before. Didn't you know that in my will, you have to experience it? Of what my humanity has undergone, and who was so demanding and inexorable because of the redemption. In the same way, for you too my justice is demanding and inexorable because of the kingdom of the Divine Fiat. My humanity is hidden, because my justice wants to take its course and maintain its balance. My beloved Jesus fell silent, and then he resumed. My daughter. In creation, my will created connections between things in such a way that everything was connected together. Each thing created had a means of communication with another. Man possessed as many means of communication as there were created things. For being the king of all things, he was just and necessary. That he is in communication with all creation. To reign there. When he withdrew from the divine will, he has lost even the first means of communication. It's like a city where the main power line is broken. No other lines are fed and the city is in darkness. And even if the electrical wires are still there, they do not have the virtue of providing light to the whole city. Because the source from which the light came is in the dark. Adam thus became a city in darkness. Communication links no longer worked. The light source had withdrawn from him. Because he himself had broken communications and he found himself as a dethroned king and without a kingdom. He no longer reigned. Chaque lumière de la ville s'est éteinte. Il s'est retrouvé enveloppé par les ténèbres de sa propre volonté. When a soul possesses my will, it represents a city full of light and able to communicate with all parts of the world. His communications extend even to the sea, to the sun, to the stars and to the whole sky. Requests come to him from all parts of the world. As she is the richest, it can provide everything through its means of communication and it is known to heaven and earth. All of them reach out to this soul and she is the most loved. It is quite the opposite for the one who does not live in my will. Its existence is hard. He suffers from hunger, receives a few crumbs only out of pity. His enemies often plunder him. He suffers from this darkness and lives in extreme poverty. I felt oppressed because of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus. To this was added other sufferings. I offered everything to the adorable will to obtain the triumph of his reign. While doing this, I looked at the sky that passed through white and luminous clouds. My sweet Jesus manifesting himself in me said to me, My daughter, look how beautiful these clouds are. See how they cover the sky and form a magnificent ornament on the blue of the vault. But who has changed their grayness and drove out their darkness to turn them into white and resplendent clouds? The sun, by coating them with its light, made them lose their darkness to turn them into clouds of light. Yes, they are still clouds, but they are no longer dark and they illuminate the earth. Before being covered by the sun, They seemed to make the heavens ugly by their darkness, by masking the beauty of an azure sky. Now they honor him and constitute his most beautiful ornament. My daughter. Sufferings, mortifications, my privations, and painful circumstances are all clouds that darken the soul. But if the soul lets all this flow in my will, better than a sun, it will put on the soul and convert these dark clouds into clouds of resplendent light, in such a way that they will become the most beautiful ornament of the sky of this soul. In my will, everything loses that darkness that oppresses and seems to play with the poor creature. Everything then contributes to illuminate it and adorn it with a resplendent beauty. I will then say again to the whole of heaven, how beautiful she is, the daughter of my will, all adorned with these white and shining clouds. It is nourished by light. My will clothes it with my light, which converts hers into a resplendent clarity. I was thinking of the divine will and the evil caused by the human will. My beloved Jesus, very afflicted, said to me, my daughter, all that I have suffered in my humanity was nothing but the evil that the human will had brought into the poor creature. It constituted his prison, deprived him of the possibility of launching to God, to heaven, and wherever she wanted to go. The creature was unable to do good and was surrounded by thick darkness. I have come to earth. I locked myself in the prison of my dear mother's womb. Even though this prison was holy, it is undeniable that it was prison. The narrowest and the most obscure in the world. So much so that it was impossible for me to extend a hand, neither to take a step, or even nor to open an eye. This is what the human will had done to the creatures. From the moment of my conception, I came suffer the pain of slaughtering the prison of human will and to restore what was lost. I wanted to be born in a stable and experience the most extreme poverty. For the human will had formed these stables. Passions had accumulated manure in the souls of poor creatures. By blowing on them an icy wind, which numbed them internally. All this influenced the nature of the poor creature, to the point of depriving him not only of all earthly happiness, but to make him aware of the poverty of the soul as well as of the body. I wanted to suffer cold, extreme poverty and the smell of manure from this barn. Having two beasts near me, I had the pain of seeing that the human will had almost converted into an animal. Our most beautiful work, our precious jewel, our dear image, man. There is no suffering I have endured which did not have its source in the human will. I submitted to everything in order to restore the creature in the realm of the Divine Fiat. In my very passion, I wanted to suffer the pain of being stripped for flogging, quartered naked on the cross to the point that all my bones could be counted. In the midst of confusion, abandonment, and indescribable bitterness. Tout cela n'était rien d'autre que le produit de la volonté humaine qui avait déposé le home de tous les biens et qui, de son souffle empoisonné, elevate couvert de confusion et de disgrace. Au point de le transformer de si horrible facon il devenait la raison de ses ennemis. Ma fille, si tu veux connaître tous les mots engendres par la volonté humaine, examine soigneusement ma vie. Enumera un par un toutes les souffrances, et tu verras imprimé en lettres noires la sinistre histoire de la volonté humaine. You will feel such horror when you read it, that you will be happy to die, rather than letting a single syllable into you. After which Jesus fell silent. He was sad, thoughtful, and distressed. He looked around and in the distance as if he wanted to judge the dispositions of the creatures. Not seeing them disposed, he kept a deep silence. I then spent a few days of deprivation, as if he no longer wanted to live in me. Then, like a rising sun, I felt it manifesting itself in me and he said to me, my daughter, when I speak, a life comes out of me. This is the greatest gift. I have to see if a creature can receive this life. If there is, on the part of the creatures, a disposition where this life is received, Not seeing her, I am forced to remain silent. For there is no place where I can deposit this life, this great gift. For this reason I often do not speak, because what concerns the Divine Fiat is not only for you, but will also serve other creatures. It is in you mainly that my Divine Fiat will form its center, in order to be transmitted for the good of others. Also, when I remain silent, you pray that the kingdom of my will may be known, and you suffer from seeing yourself deprived of me, your life. Living without life is the greatest of martyrs. These sufferings and prayers will make the gift mature. They make me open my mouth to bring out the new life of my divine will. They arrange the creatures to receive it. These sufferings are greater than the sun's rays that bring fields, fruits, and flowers to maturity. Therefore, everything is necessary. Silence, suffering and prayers. For the decorum of the manifestations of my will. I was making the hour when Jesus instituted the most holy Eucharist. Manifesting himself in me, he said to me, "My daughter, when I perform an act, I start by looking if there is a creature in whom I can deposit this act, someone capable to take the good I do, to watch over him and to protect it. When I instituted the Blessed Sacrament, I looked for a creature, and my Queen Mother offered herself to receive this act and the deposit of this great gift, saying, 'My son, Sijeta I offered Monday sen pour valer sur toi et defendra. I now offer you my motherly heart to receive this great deposit. I arrange around your sacramental life my affections, the beating of my heart, my love, my thoughts and my whole being, to defend you, accompany you, love you, and make reparations. I pledge to reward you for the gift you give us. Entrust yourself to your mother and I will watch to defend your sacramental life. And since you have made me queen of all creation, I have the right to arrange around you all the sunlight, to pay homage and adoration to you. I place around you to give you love and glory, the stars, the sky, the sea and all the inhabitants of the air, assured of knowing where to place the great deposit of my sacramental life and trusting in my mother who had given me all the proofs of her fidelity, I instituted the most blessed sacrament. She was the only dignified creature to have custody of it, to defend it and to make reparation for my act. So you see that when the creatures receive me, I descend into them accompanied by the inseparable acts of my mother. It is only because of this that I can endure my sacramental life. That is why it is necessary, when I want to carry out a great work worthy of myself, that I start by choosing a creature in order to first have a place to deposit my gift and, second, to obtain compensation. It's the same in the natural order. If the farmer wants to sow, it does not spread its seeds in the middle of the road. He starts by looking for a plot. Then he works the land, digs furrows before sowing. And so that his seed is safe, he covers it, looking forward to the harvest, in exchange for his work and the grain he entrusted to the land. This is what I did with you. I have chosen you, prepared you. Then I have entrusted to you the great gift of the manifestations of my will. Et tout cum. Jai confie à ma mère bien-aimée le sort de ma vie sacramentelle. Jai volonté confier à toi aussi le sort du royaume de ma volonté. Jai continuez à penser. À tout ce que monde tu bien m'avait fait et souffert dans le cours de sa vie, et il ajuda. My daughter, my life was very brief on earth and most of it was hidden. But although very short, as a divine will animated my humanity. What good she did! The whole church depends on my life and drinks from my doctrine. Each of my words is a fountain that quenches the Christian's thirst. Each example is more than a sun that illuminates, warms, enriches and grows the greatest holiness. If one were to take all saints, the greatest souls, all their suffering and heroism, and compare them to my very short life. They would still be small flames in front of a great sun. And as the divine will reigned in me, all suffering, humiliations, confusions, oppositions and accusations of my enemies in the course of my life and of my passion, served for their humiliation and greater confusion. The divine will was in me. What happened was comparable to what happens with the sun. When clouds stretch in the sky and seem to want to obscure the surface of the earth by momentarily masking the brightness of the sunlight, the sun makes fun of the clouds. For their existence in the air is not eternal. Their life is transient and a slight breath of wind is enough to disperse them. While the sun is always triumphant in the fullness of its light which dominates and fills the whole earth. It is the same for me. All that my enemies could have done to me in my very death. They were so many clouds that covered my humanity. But as for the sun of my divinity, they could not reach it. As soon as the wind of the power of my divine will has blown, the clouds have been dispersed and, better than a sun, I was resurrected triumphantly and gloriously, leaving my enemies more humiliated than ever. My daughter, in the soul where my will reigns in all its fullness, the minutes of life are centuries and centuries of fullness of all goods. Where it does not reign, centuries of life contain only a few minutes of goods. And if the soul where my will reigns suffers humiliation, contradictions and penalties, they are just clouds that the wind of my divine fiat chases upon those who cause them, and they will be their shame for daring to touch the bearers of my eternal will. Then I thought of my mother's suffering, painful and heart pierced, when she separated from her Jesus, leaving him dead in his tomb. And I was like, how is it possible to have enough strength to leave him? It is true that he was dead, but it was still the body of Jesus. How didn't her maternal love have it consumed and prevented from moving away from even a single step away from her lifeless body? What heroism! What a strength! But I was thinking this when my dear Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, do you want to know how my mother had the strength to leave me? The secret of her strength was in my will that reigned in her. She lived by a divine, non-human will. It therefore had immeasurable strength. But you must know that when my transfixed mother left me in the tomb, my will has kept it immersed in two immense seas. Any of pain, and the other, larger, of joys and beatitudes. And if the sea of sorrows made him suffer all the martyrs, the other sea of joys gave him happiness. His beautiful soul followed me into limbo, to participate in the party organized for me by the patriarchs, the prophets, his mother and father, and our dear Saint Joseph. By my presence, limbo has become a paradise. I couldn't do less than allow her, to her, which was inseparable from me in my pains, to attend the first feast of creatures. His joy was so great that she had the strength to separate herself from my body, to withdraw and to wait the fulfillment of my resurrection and the completion of my redemption. Joy sustained her in her sorrow, and her sorrow sustained her in her joy. Whoever possesses my will can never lack strength or joy, and has everything at his disposal. Don't you experience it yourself? When you are deprived of me and when you feel consumed, the light of the Divine Fiat then forms his sea of happiness and gives you life. I followed the divine will in the act of resurrection, glorious and triumphant, of Jesus from the dead. My kind Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, the resurrection of my humanity gave the right to all creatures to be resurrected for glory and eternal bliss, not only in their soul, but in their body. Sin had taken away this right from them. My humanity, through its resurrection, has given it back to them. My humanity contained within itself the seed of resurrection for all. It's by virtue of this seed that everyone has received the benefit of being able to rise from the dead. He who performs the first act must have in him the virtue, to be able to enclose in himself all other acts. What must other creatures accomplish? From this first act the others must be able to imitate it and accomplish it in turn. What good has my humanity not brought? By giving everyone the right to be resurrected. By withdrawing from my will, man had lost everything. He had broke the bond that bound him to God and abandoned all rights to the benefits of its Creator. My humanity, through his resurrection, has re-established this bond of unity and restored in his rights to the resurrection. Se amundi humanite tu appartienant la gloire, l'honneur et la beatitude. Sigenateis par resuscite, personae honorite pu resusciter. Se avec ce premier acte tuist venu la succession des actes, qui sont semblables au premier. Vois quel est la puissance d'un premier acte. Ma mère accomplit le premier acte de ma conception. Pour me concevoir, moi, le verbe éternel, elle apprit en elle tous les actes des creatures pour les offrir à Dieu de telle sorte que elle a pu dire à son créateur. Je suis celle qui vous aime, vous adore, et satisfait pour toutes les creatures. Trouvant en z toutes les creatures en ma mère, et bien que ma conception fut unique, jaipu en z devenir la vie de chaque creature. En z, ma fille, en faisant les premiers actes dans ma volonté, les autres creatures recoivent le droit d'y entrer et de répéter tes actes pour en recevoir les mêmes effets. Comme bien il est nécessaire que le premier acte soit accompli, même par un seul. Que la porte soit ouverte et que soit prépare ce qui doit servir de modèle pour donner vie à cet acte. Lorsque le premier est accompli, il est plus facile pour les autres de l'imiter. C'est la même chose dans le monde. Celui qui fabrique le premier objet doit travailler plus fort. Make more sacrifices. Prepare all necessary materials and make many tests. When done, not only do others obtain the right to imitate him, but it is much easier for them to reproduce it. But the glory belongs to the one who did it first. Because without this first act, the others would never have seen the light of day. Consequently, be attentive by forming the first acts. If you want, let the kingdom of the Divine Fiat come and that he reigns on earth, merging into the holy and divine will. I then called all the acts of the creatures, so that they may resurrect in it. My sweet Jesus said to me, my daughter, what a big difference there is between the act performed in my will or the act performed outside of it, even if this act is good. In the first, the divine life flows. This life fills heaven and earth and this act receives the value of a divine life. In the second, it is a human life that flows. It is limited, restricted. Often its value disappears once the act is completed. If there is a value in this act, it is human and perishable. I was continuing in my usual state. I saw my sweet Jesus in the guise of a very dejected little child. Was sad to the point of feeling like he was going to die. Squeezed him against my heart, covering him with kisses. What would I have done to comfort him? Jesus, sighing, said to me, my daughter, see how beautiful creation is. What a fascination of light, what an enchantment of varieties, what a rare beauty. Yet they are only ornaments of our divine being. If this is so, our being infinitely surpasses our own ornaments. The creature is unable to understand it, just as the eye is incapable to receive in itself the immensity of sunlight. The eye sees the light. It is filled with this light within the limits of its possibilities. But as for to contain it entirely, to measure the length and width of the space where it extends, this is impossible for him. Our being is for man, what the sun is for the eye. Concernant les ornaments que l'homme peut voir et toucher. L'homme voit le soleil. Sa lumière élédient et lui permet de sentir sa chaleur. L'homme voit l'immensité de l'eau dans la mer. He contemplates the vault of the heavens with all the stars. But who can say what the light is made of? How much light do the heavens contain? How much water in the sea? How many stars in the sky, and who formed the vault of the heavens? To this, man does not know what to answer. He sees and he enjoys it. But he is the great ignorant when it comes to the arithmetic of weights and measures. And if this is true for our ornaments, it is even more true for our divine being. You should know that all creation, as everything created, is a lesson for man. They tell of our divine qualities. Each gives a lesson on the qualities they contain. The sun gives a lesson in light and teaches that to be light, one must be pure and free from all that is material. Light is always united with heat. Because we cannot separate light from heat. If you want to be light, you must love only your Creator like the sun. This will bring you the fruitfulness of all goods. Heaven is a lesson of my heavenly fatherhood. He continually calls you to your Creator. He gives you a lesson in detachment for what is earthly and a lesson on the heights of holiness to which you must arrive. You must adorn yourself better than the stars with all the divine virtues. Everything gives his lesson and calls man to put himself in it to copy and imitate it. I didn't create all my ornaments for the sole purpose of seeing them, but so that the creature, by imitating them, can be embellished. And yet, who bothers to hear all these lessons? Almost no one. He was very sad and kept silent. I then followed the divine will as the divine being created man so that, in the company of my first father Adam, I can love my Creator with that same love from the first moment he was created. I wanted to receive this divine breath, this outpouring of love, so that I can give it back to my Creator. I was thinking of this when my sweet Jesus, very happy, said to me, "My daughter, for him who lives in my will, there is no act that is not present, and there is not an act that we have performed that cannot be received. Receive my breath and my outpouring of love." What a pleasure it has been for us, this first act of man's creation. We had created heaven and earth, but we didn't feel anything new in us. It was different with the creation of man. It is a will that was created, and that will was free. We have put in it our will, depositing it as in a bank, to derive from it interests of love, glory, and adoration. Oh! That we overflow with love! That we tremble with joy as we create this free will to hear him say, "I love you." And when man, filled with our love, pronounced this first "I love you," how great was our satisfaction! Because it was like if he returned the interests to us of all the goods we had placed in him. This free will we had created was the place where we had deposited the capital of a divine will. We were satisfied to receive this small interest, without ever thinking of taking back our capital. That is why the pain of man's fall was great. Because he gave us back the capital so that he wouldn't have to pay us that little interest. His bank was left empty, as his enemy had made a deal with him. He fills her with passions and miseries, and the poor man found himself bankrupt. Now, my daughter, the act of the creation of man was a solemn act that gave us the greatest satisfaction. It's you we call, in order to repeat the solemnity of this act, by placing in your will the great capital of our will. And by doing this, we are overflowing with love and we are trembling with joy. For in this way we see the realization of our purpose. Certainly, thou shalt not deny us this meager interest, and you won't reject our capital, will you? Every day, I will come to pick up my statement of account. I will call you in this first act where we created this free will, so that you pay me the interest. And I'll see if I can add something to my capital. My mind was lost in the Divine Fiat, and I thought to myself, oh, how I would like to live. This first act of creation. This outpouring of divine and intense love. Poured on the first creature when it was created. I would like to receive this almighty breath so that I can give back to my Creator, all this love and all this glory that He was to receive from the creature. And my Jesus, holding me close to Him, said to me, my daughter, this is precisely why I come to visit you so often, to the point that it may seem unusual. Because I haven't done it for anyone else yet. It's all about reordering the first act by which I created the creature. So I come back and stay with you as a loving father would act with his daughter. How many times have I not blown into you? To the point where you could no longer contain my almighty breath? I have poured into you my repressed love to the point of filling your soul to the brim. All this was nothing but the renewal of the solemn act of creation. I wanted to experience again this great satisfaction of the creation of man. That's why I'm coming to you. Not only to feel it, but also to restore order, harmony, and love between the Creator and the creature. As the moment it was created. At the beginning of man's creation. There was no distance between him and me. Everything was common to us. As soon as he called me, I was there. I loved him like a son and was drawn to him. I couldn't do anything less than be close to him very often. I renew in you the beginning of creation. Therefore, be careful to receive such a good. The deprivation of my sweet Jesus made me bitter, and I sighed after his return when he manifested himself in me, but so sad that he pitied him, and I said to him, tell me, why are you so sad? He replied, ah, my daughter, serious things must happen in order for the order of a kingdom or a house to be restored. A general devastation will take place and many things will perish. Some will win, others will lose. It will be chaos, tension will be extreme, and it will take a lot of suffering before things are restored and renewed to give a new form to the kingdom or the house. The suffering is greater and the work more important when it is necessary to demolish before building. It will be the same for the reconstruction of the kingdom of my will. How many renovations are needed? We will have to upset everything, slaughter everything, and destroy human beings. It will be necessary to stir the earth, the sky, the sea, the air, the wind, the water, and the fire. In order to make every effort to renew the face of the earth and bring the new order of the kingdom of my divine will among creatures. As a result, many serious things will happen, and I, seeing this, seeing the chaos, I feel sad. But looking beyond, seeing order and the new kingdom restored, this deep sadness turns into a joy so great that you could not understand it. That's why you see me sometimes sad and sometimes in the joy of my heavenly homeland. I was very sad because of this devastation that Jesus had told me about. These serious things were terrifying, riots, revolutions and wars. Oh! That my poor heart groaned. And Jesus, to console me, took me in his arms, hugged me very tightly against his most holy heart and said to me, my daughter, to console us, let us look further. I want things to get back to the way they are. Where they were at the beginning of creation. Which was nothing but an outpouring of love. And that state still exists. For what we do is done forever and is never interrupted. Repeating an act does not cause us any fatigue. What we do once, we like to do always. This is God's work. An act that lasts for centuries of centuries. And even for all eternity. Thus, our outpouring of love and our breath continually emanate from our divine womb and flow to blow on generations of creatures. Our outpouring of love that blows over all creation covers heaven and earth, the sun and the sea, wind and water, and runs to the creatures. If this were not the case, the sky would shrink, the stars would scatter, the sun would become poorer, water would be lacking, and the earth would no longer produce plants or fruits. For he would miss the life of our love which blows on all things. They would withdraw from our source from which they came. If our breath were to run out, the generation of creatures would end. For creatures are nothing but sparks that come out of our breath to fertilize the rest of the generations. But the creatures take from created things what is material, leaving the life of love that blows on everything. And this life of love remains suspended above all things without being able to give itself. It's like walking through a field of flowers or a garden full of trees laden with precious fruit, looking at the flowers without picking them. You will not receive the pleasure in life of the scent of flowers. And if you do not pick the fruits, you will not taste or receive their life. This is so in creation. The man looks at her, but he does not receive the life of love that God has placed in all created things. The reason for this is that man does not use his will and does not open his heart to receive this outpouring of love from his Creator. Still, our outpouring of love does not cease, and our regenerative breath is always at work. Nous attendons le royaume de notre divine fiat. Pour que notre amour descende parmi les creatures et en recevant de nous cette vie divine. Elles formeront leur épanouissement d'amour pour celui qui la leur a donné. C'est pourquoi, ma fille, tout la création est centrée sur toi. Jet regard du haut du ciel à toi et jet envoyé cette effusion d'amour. Jet regard du soleil et jet souffle sur toi pour t'envoyer ma vie divine. Jet regard de la mer et de ses vagues écumants jet envoyé monde amour qui, parce tu est reprime, tom sur toi en vagues impétueuses. Jet regard du vent et jet diverse sur toi monde amour puissant, purifiant et brûlant. Jet regard des montagnes et jet envoyé l'effusion de monde amour ferme et immuable. Ilnest pas un seul chose cri dougenet regard pour répandre sur toi monde amour. For my will being in you. You attract my eyes from everywhere, and my will increases your capacity to continually receive this outpouring of love. Where my divine will reigns, I can give everything, centralize everything. And a competition is established between the Creator and the creature. I give and the creature receives. I give to whoever gives me in surprising ways. That is why I always want you in my will. So that you can always compete with you. I was making my rounds in creation in order to follow the acts of the divine will in all created things, and my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, my will at work in creation was one. But it has spread and multiplied in everything created. And the soul that travels through creation, to follow his actions and to embrace them all together, gathers the divine will scattered in each one, makes it one, and gives me back the glory of unity in my will. Then, by dispersing it again, it gives me the glory of my divine will multiplied and duplicated in everything. That's a big thing, my daughter. The smallness of a creature, bringing together my split and multiplied will, in so many things to tell me. One is the love, honor and glory that I want to give you back. For my act contains all things. He is perfect and worthy only of you." Then, pursuing again these lovers' stratagems, the creature gives me the glory of the supreme fiat multiplied and split in all things. And I allow him to do all this. I delight in his love strategies, for being in my will, the creature is in my house and she can only do what belongs to my heavenly family. His way of doing things is always divine. Only she can please me and give me perfect glory and love. Later, as the privations of my Jesus were longer, I felt oppressed. I felt the full weight of my long exile and the pain of being so far from my homeland. A deep sadness invaded my poor soul. My beloved Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, we both need to be patient and penser au travail pour la formation du royaume de la divine volonté. Because no one knows what we are doing, the sacrifices that are necessary, continuous acts and prayers that such a great good requires. No one takes part in our sacrifices. No one helps us to form this kingdom that will bring them so much good. They do not pay us any attention and think during this time only of enjoying this miserable life without even being ready to receive the good that we are preparing. Oh! If creatures could see what is happening in the secret of our hearts, how great would their surprise be! This is what happened when my mother and I were on earth. As we prepared the kingdom of redemption, all the remedies that would allow everyone to find salvation, we devoted all the sacrifices, all the works, all the prayers and all our lives to it. And while we thought of each one to give life to all, no one thought of us. No one knew what we were doing. My Heavenly Mother was the custodian of the kingdom of redemption. Therefore she took part in all my sacrifices and sufferings. Only Saint Joseph knew what we were doing. But he did not participate in all our suffering. Oh! What pain for our hearts to see that! While the mother and the son consumed themselves with pain and love, in order to form all possible and imaginable remedies, to heal them and make them safe, not only they weren't thinking about us, but they offended us, despised us, while others were plotting to take my life from birth. I repeat this with you, my daughter, to form the kingdom of the Divine Fiat. The world takes advantage of us even though it does not know us. Only my minister who helps us knows what we are doing. But he does not participate in our sacrifices and our work. We are alone. So be patient in this long work we do. The more we work, the more we will enjoy the fruits of this heavenly kingdom. The privations of my sweet Jesus tormented and weakened me. My poor soul seemed exposed to a burning sun, which is the divine will. Everything seems blurry to me and I feel miserable. But a supreme force nevertheless forces me to remain under this sun of the Divine Fiat without being able to move, and without the one who could bring me a little water. Make these rays less burning and relieve my bruised heart. How unhappy I am without Jesus! Everything is changed in me. All I have left as my only inheritance is the divine will that no one can take away from me, not even Jesus. It alone is my life, my stay, my everything. Everything else is over, everyone has left me and I have no one to turn to, neither in heaven nor on earth. But I was pouring out my pain when my beloved Jesus, the one who gives me life and death, who makes my existence happy and unhappy, manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, the sky is always heaven, it does not change and it does not move. Clouds can darken it sometimes, stretch and mask the beautiful blue sky, but they can't touch the sky and only stretch beneath it. There is a great distance between the sky and the clouds. The sky will never lose its beauty because of the clouds, because it is intangible. If there is a change, it is for the earth. The human eye, instead of seeing the sky, sees only the clouds and the darkened atmosphere. This is the soul that makes my will, it is more than heaven. My will extends into the soul more than a blue sky dotted with stars, it remains firm and unchanging. She remains in place, reigns and dominates over all things with such majesty, that the smallest acts of the creature, by virtue of the light of my will, are more than the stars and the brightest sun. Suffering, deprivation, are clouds, formed in the depths of human nature and which seem to obscure the heaven of my will, however, remains intangible and its sun shining in the soul sends with more force its burning rays. Everything seems obscure to you. But all this is happening on the surface and in the baseness of human nature, but in your soul. The sun of the Divine Fiat does not undergo any change. Who could ever touch my will? No one. It is immutable and unwavering. Where she reigns, there she forms her stay of light, peace and immutability. Therefore, do not be afraid. All it takes is a breath of wind. to dispel the clouds that cover your human nature, and chase away the darkness that seems to occupy your soul. Luisa, my Jesus, how you have changed. It even seems that you don't want to tell me anything more about your divine will. Jesus added, my daughter, my will never gets tired. If I don't tell you anything about it, all the things created tell you about it. Same. Stones. The sky. The sun and the sea will make their voices heard. All of creation has much to say about my eternal will. For all created things are filled with His life. They all have something to say on the life of my will. Que possident toutes les choses créées. Pour cette raison, un peu d'attention accordée à quelque chose que tu regardes ou que tu touches. Te permettra d'entendre une nouvelle leçon de ma volonté. Je subis les privations de monde du Jesus. Malgré ce der martyr, j'aime abandon dans les bras de la volonté suprême, comme sa petite fille qui grandit. Sitting on His lap, to feed within it, in order to live from His life and to resemble Him. And my beloved Jesus, manifesting Himself in me, said to me, my daughter, my will is immense. Everything that comes out of it bears the seal of its immensity. The immensity of the sky with all the stars came out of a single word of my will. From a single word came out the sun with the immensity of its light. And so it is for everything. To create the immensity of light in the world, I first had to create the space where to place this immensity of light and sky. When my will wants to speak, she first looks at whether there is the space to place the great gift of her word, which can be a sky, a sea, or a new sun, and even bigger. That is why my will is often silent. For the creatures lack the space to place the immensity of His word. And before you can speak, my word begins by doubling His will, who then speaks and deposits His immense gifts. This is the reason why, in creating man, we have made him the greatest of gifts, the richest and most precious inheritance, my will placed in deposit in him so that I can speak to him. Surprises of the huge donations contained in our fiat. But as our split will has been rejected, we couldn't find any more space where to deposit in him the great gift of our creative word. Thus man found himself poor with all the miseries of the human will. So you see that among all the events of my humanity, the greatest miracle was to restrict in it all the immensity of my divine will. The other miracles I performed are nothing in comparison, especially since it was natural for me to raise the dead, to restore sight to the blind, speech to the dumb, and to perform all kinds of miracles. For it was in my nature to do as much good as I wanted. It was at most a miracle for the creature that received it. But for me, the great miracle was to restrict in me my divinity, the immensity of my will, its endless light, its beauty, and His inimitable holiness. This was the prodigy of wonders that only a God could perform. In comparison with the great gift of my will, all I could give to the creature was little. For you can see in my will new heavens, the most resplendent suns, unheard of things, and unimaginable surprises. Heaven and earth tremble and kneel before a soul that possesses the great gift of my will. And rightly so, because they see coming out of this soul virtue, the invigorating and creative force contained in this new life that was created by God. Oh, power of my will! If they knew you, how much they would love your great gift, and how they would give their lives to possess you. I then continued my deeds in the divine will, and my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, the creature who lives in my will has within it that same divine will that dominates and reigns. His soul then possesses its power, its strength, His holiness, its light, and His property. The divine will reigns in the soul, as it has within it its power. Human weaknesses, passions, Human miseries end. Human will become subject to the power and holiness of the Supreme Will. Consequently, in the face of this power, they feel that their lives are being taken away from them. Weakness feels that it has been defeated by the irresistible force of the Divine Fiat. Darkness feels that it is invaded by light. The miseries are replaced by its infinite riches. Passions are overcome by its virtues. The human will is defeated by the divine will. What is the difference between the creature who lives in my will and the one who simply makes my will? The first owns it and keeps it at his disposal. The second is subject to my will and receives it only according to its disposition. And between the fact to possess it and that of receiving it, the distance is as great as between heaven and earth. The difference is similar to the creature which possesses immense riches and the one who receives every day only what is absolutely necessary for her. That is why they who makes my will, but does not live in it, is forced to feel weaknesses, passions, and all other miseries, which form the legacy of the human will. This was Adam's condition before he withdrew from the divine will. His Creator had given him this great gift that contained all the others. He possessed the divine will and ruled over it. For God Himself had given him the right to do so. He was thus the owner, strength, light, holiness, and bliss of this eternal fiat. But by withdrawing from the divine will, Adam lost possession and rule, and found himself reduced to receive the effects of my will and to the extent of its provisions. The creature that finds itself in this situation is always poor. She is never rich. For those who are rich possess. They do not receive. They are able to give others a portion of their property. I felt oppressed, not only because of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus, mais aussi par les menaces de graves châtiments à venir, de guerres et de révolutions, de combats infernaux et horrifiants. Monday Dieu. Quelle souffrance d'être obligé par un pouvoir suprême. Devoir tout ces mots, l'aveuglement des dirigeants qui voulent la destruction des peuples, et monde impuissance à m'opposer à la justice divine avec mes souffrances. Pour leur épargner tant de malheurs. Je ressens tout les poids de la vie et je aspirais ardemment à partir pour la patrie céleste puisque je ne pouvais pas arrêter ces malheurs avec mes souffrances. Et monde du Jesus, se manifestant au-dedans de moi, me dit, ma fille. Crois-tu que nous aurions fait plus? En leur épargnant les châtiments qui méritaient leurs nombreuses fautes. Rather than bringing them redemption, punishments are temporary suffering. Redemption is an eternal good that never ends. If I had spared them the punishments, I would not have opened heaven to them or given the right to glory. By forming the redemption, I opened the gates of heaven and I have put them on the path of the heavenly fatherland by returning lost glory to them. When one has in sight a great good, it is necessary to agree to set aside a lesser good. Especially since the greatest must serve to balance my justice. And my humanity could and would never oppose this divine balance. In addition, the punishments were to be used. Reminder to creatures. Of voices to wake them up from their guilty sleep and encourage them to return to the right path, and of light to guide them. These punishments were also means to help them receive the goods of the redemption. I didn't want to destroy these guides. Consequently, with my coming to earth, the punishments they deserved were not spared. Now, my daughter, you think that you would have done more if you had delivered them from the punishments they deserve in these times, and seeing that this is not the case, life seems painful to you and you would like to come to heaven. My poor daughter! How little do you know the true great goods! Incalculable and infinite, and so different from the others who are small and finished. Isn't it bigger? To form the kingdom of my divine will. To make it known. To pave the way for them to enter it, and to give them the light of his knowledge to guide them, to restore to creatures their happiness, the first condition of their creation, and to enrich them with all the good that the divine will contains? If you had spared the creatures all their punishments, compared to the great good of the supreme Fiat kingdom, it would have been as if you had done nothing. That is why, if you find yourself in the same situation, you must be happy to form the kingdom of the divine will that surpasses all things. As for the punishments, you must let them at least in part take their course. Especially since I keep you on earth for the kingdom of my will, which is your special mission. But the terror I felt after the terrible misfortunes that Jesus had made me see was so great that I did not want to stay on this earth, and I said to myself, it seems like an enemy is driving death away from me and forcing me through this exile. I often believe that I will die. Until a few months ago, I thought I was going to arrive in my heavenly homeland. But everything went up in smoke. This enemy resists me and I must remain in the miserable prison of my humanity. What is this power that fights me? And who is the one who opposes my happiness? Who slows my steps, prevents my flight, blocks my way so cruelly and so hard, and makes me back off? I was thinking about this when my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, do not be sad. You hurt yourself and I suffer to see you suffer so much. Do you want to know who this great hostile power is? It is the whole of heaven that prevents you from taking flight to the heavenly homeland after which you have been sighing for a long time. But do you know why? Because they want to see the kingdom of my will fulfilled in you. All the inhabitants of heaven want to be restored to the honor and glory they lack, because my will was not fulfilled in them when they were on earth. They therefore want my will to be fulfilled in you so that through you, they may receive their complete glory. Also, when they see you about to take flight, all the powers of heaven oppose it, and they hinder you in the most energetic way. But know that this celestial power is not hostile, but friendly. She loves you very much and acts for your own good. Do you know, my daughter, that the one who forms the kingdom of my will on earth will form the complete crown of their glory in heaven? And does it seem to you little that they expect from one of their sisters this complete glory of the supreme Fiat? Therefore, my daughter, say again with me, Fiat, Fiat. I was sad, but totally immersed in the divine will, and my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, when I call souls in special and extraordinary ways, I act as a king who appoints his ministers and who with them, legislates, reigns and governs his kingdom. That's what I do too. I call these souls to be part of my kingdom and I establish the laws that will govern the world. And as I have called you in a special way to live in the yard of my will, she makes you share her most intimate secrets and makes you see the evils, wars, and infernal preparations that will destroy many cities. And since your smallness is not able to bear the sight of these evils, it is right that you desire to come to heaven. But you should know that often ministers dissuade the king from instituting punitive laws, and if they don't get everything they ask for, they always get something. It will be the same for you. If all is not granted to you on earth, however, you will get something. So courage, and may your flight into my will be continual. I followed the divine will by making my round in creation. I saw my sweet Jesus gathering all my deeds in me. They were like lights, all more beautiful than the others. Jesus called the angels and made them aware of some of these acts. They competed with each other for receive them and take them triumphantly to the vault of heaven. Jesus, all goodness, said to me, my daughter, the value of these acts performed in my will is so great that angels regard it as a favor to receive them. They see in them the creative virtue and perceive in these acts the echo of the divine Fiat. These acts of light are divine voices, and these divine voices are music, beauty, beatitudes, holiness, and divine science. And as my will is the virtue of heaven, the angels hasten to bring these acts performed in her into their heavenly sojourn. Nothing that is done in my supreme will can dwell on earth. These acts can at most be done here on earth, but my will, such as a magnet, attracts them to their source and leads them into the heavenly homeland. I felt my poor mind absorbed in the eternal Fiat, and I said to myself, how is it possible that acts performed in the divine will have such power? And my kind Jesus added, my daughter, why does the sun give its light to the whole earth? Because it is greater than the earth and it possesses a unique and complete strength, source of colors, fecundity, and a variety of sweets. This is why the sun, being larger than the earth, can give it light, a variety of colors in flowers and sweetness in fruits. The sun, in its greatness and magnificence, is one in its act, but it accomplishes so much in this unique act that it fascinates the whole earth by giving each thing its distinct act. My will is more than the sun, and since its light is infinite, it produces in a single act the fruitfulness of all the acts together. The soul that lives in my will possesses the source of its deeds and fruitfulness. That is why, in the soul where it reigns and dominates, my will changes neither its regime nor its way of operating. The soul that acts in my will produces the multiplicity and fruitfulness of its divine acts. All of God's acts are as one, embracing everything. All acts are performed together. Consider the creation of man. When from a single act came out altogether holiness, power, knowledge, love, beauty, and goodness. In a word, from what came out of us, there is nothing that has not been infused into man. We gave him to participate in everything. For when we act, we never do anything by halves. And when we give everything. Moreover, my will is infinite light. It is a virtue of light that, to descend to the depths of the abyss, to rise to the highest peaks, and to spread everywhere. There is no place where it does not reach. But in the light, no matter can penetrate, nor anything foreign to him. My light is intangible. Its function is to give without ever stopping. This is the condition of the soul that lives in my divine will. The soul becomes light with the light of the divine will. Consequently, it descends into the depths of hearts and brings with it the good of this light. My will extends everywhere and over everything as to bring to everything and to all the effects contained in its light. The soul would feel betrayed if it could not extend to all and to all things. So much so that the soul rises in the heights, penetrating beyond the azure vault of the heavens. It echoes my will that reigns in the heavenly fatherland. My will that reigns in the soul and this same will that reigns in the heavenly fatherland descend together and extend to form this reign of joys, beatitudes and new happiness, which falls on all the blessed. Life in my will is admirable and it is a continual prodigy. It contains all the goods, it is the germ that multiplies to infinity. Its fecundity is inimitable and that is why the whole earth and sky dream of it. It is God's victory over the creature, and man's victory over his Creator. How beautiful it is to see! The Supreme Being, the Eternal Majesty, and the smallness of the creature sing victory. By virtue of this divine will, the small and the big, the weak and the strong, the rich and the poor, compete with each other, and the two claim victory. That's why I have such a great desire. May my divine will be known. Let his reign come, to grant the creature its victory and its place on the same level as me. Without the reign of my will in the creature, it cannot be. There will always be a distance between me and the creature. It will not be able to defeat or sing victory. The work of our hands will not be in our image. I merged with my sweet Jesus in his divine will, to multiply my thoughts by his. I placed myself in every thought of the creatures in order to be able to give my Creator acts of homage, glory, and love for all the thoughts of every creature. But as I did that, I thought, how could my beloved Jesus do deeds for all the deeds, all the thoughts, and all the steps that the creatures were going to take? And my Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, just as in creation, my divine will has established The number of all things created, such as the number of stars, plants, and species, and up to the number of drops of water. My will has also established the number of human acts of creatures. No act may be lost or increased in accordance with the order established by the Divine Fiat. Creatures, by virtue of the free will granted to them, could do whether these acts are good or bad. But not that they are higher or lower in number. They have not been granted that. Everything is established by the divine will. In the redemption, the eternal Fiat that reigned in my humanity knew all the acts that creatures were to perform. All thoughts, all words and all the steps, nothing was missing. So it's not surprising that I have multiplied all my acts for each of the acts of the creatures, that the glory of the Heavenly Father may be completed on my part, in the name of each creature and for each of his acts. And the good I implored for them was complete. Every act of the creature, every thought, word, or not, had to have the help of my act. Each of my thoughts had to help and give light to each of his thoughts. So on for all the other creatures. Everything is understood in me. I have formed within myself the new creation of all the acts of creatures, so that we can give them everything back again. Nothing was missing. Otherwise, if even a single thought had been missed, it would not have been a work worthy of your Jesus. The creature would have found a void in my thoughts and would not have had the help, the strength, and the light of this thought when she wanted to. Now, my daughter, my divine will formed with me this new creation of all the human acts of creatures so that I could implore the kingdom of the supreme Fiat of my Heavenly Father. And the creatures will find this triple help of strength and light in all their actions, so that the kingdom of my will may return. This universal triple aid will be constituted: the acts of the Sovereign Queen, the acts of your Jesus, and of those of the little daughter of the divine will. I wondered after that what this divine will could be. And Jesus added, my daughter, the divine will means to give God to God. It is a divine outpouring that transforms human nature into divine nature. It is the communication of creative virtue that embraces the infinite, rises in the eternal end, takes eternity in the palm of his hand so that he can say to God, I loved you from all eternity. Your will has no beginning. She is eternal with you and me. In her, I loved you with a love that has no beginning or end. What is my will? My will is everything. I offered my work by saying, Jesus, my love. I want your hands in mine in order to give Heavenly Father this love and glory that you gave him individually by your labors when you were on earth. I also want to unite with you when you, the Word of the Father, you participated from all eternity with the Father to his own works and when you loved with mutual love and perfect equality. I want to glorify you with the same glory with which you glorify yourself among the three divine persons. But I'm not happy yet. I want to place my hands in yours, that I may flow with you in your will. I want to sink into the sun to give you the glory of the light, the warmth, and the fruitfulness of the sun. I want to sink into the sea to give you the glory of its waves and its continual whisper. I will in the air to give you the glory of birdsong, in the blue sky to give you the glory of its immensity, and my voice flows in the flicker of the stars to tell you I love you. I want to sink into the fields of flowers to give you the glory and adoration of their perfumes. There's no place I don't want to go so you can hear your little girl who adores you, loves you, and glorifies you everywhere. I was saying this and many other things when my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, my daughter, I feel in you my own glory, my love, my life, and my works. My will centralizes everything in you. But also, when you work, my will takes you into the sun and you act with its light. Your movements flow in the sun's rays. When his light is scattered, you spread the glory and love of your Creator. How beautiful it is to see my daughter in all my works to give me the love and glory that each of them contains. As my will possesses the virtue of duplication, it also splits you so that you can find yourself in the sea, in the air, in the stars everywhere in order to love me and to be loved and glorified. My daughter. For every act that the divine will performs in union with the soul, a divine life is formed. As my will is divine, it can do no less than form divine lives in your deeds. In such a way that where it reigns, when the soul works, speaks, thinks, its heart beats, etc., my divine will is at work. His thoughts, words, and heartbeats flow into those of the creature in order to form first his act, his word, to then give a place to his divine life. Thus, divine lives arise from all that the soul does. In such a way that heaven and earth are populated with so many images of divine lives. The soul becomes the reproducer of divine life and makes it duplicate itself everywhere. My will is no less powerful in the soul where it reigns, that it is within the three divine persons. Therefore, possessing the virtue of duplication, my will forms not only in the soul as many divine lives as it desires, but it also forms its sky, its sun, its seas of love, its fields of flowers, and makes that the soul can say to its God, "You have given me a heaven and I give you a heaven. You have given me a sun and I also give you a sun. You gave me seas, fields of flowers and I also give you seas and fields of flowers." Oh! Power of my will! What can she not do in the soul where she reigns? Therefore, where it reigns, my will delights in placing the soul on the same level as us. For she knows that it is our will that the creature be in our image and in our likeness. Our will, faithful executor, makes it such. We call this creature where our supreme fiat reigns. It is our glory, our love, and our virtue. It is only in our will that the soul can achieve this. Without my will, there is a great distance between the Creator and the creature. That is why I have such a great desire that the divine will reigns in the creature. In order to leave a great field of action to our will, so that it can to duplicate our works, our lives, and raise the creature to the purpose for which it was created. The creature came out of our will. It is only right that it walks in the footsteps of our will and returns to its Creator by the same path from which it came, all beautiful and enriched by the wonders of our eternal Fiat. My state of abandonment in the Divine Fiat continues. Aries to have followed his deeds in creation. I was thinking about how to reorder before the Supreme Majesty all the relationships between the Creator and the creature that human ingratitude had broken. And my beloved Jesus, manifesting himself within me, said to me, "My daughter, look at all creation. The sky, the countless stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, the fields of flowers, the mountains and the valleys are all chambers that I have formed. In each of them is a royal palace where I live. I did this so that man could easily find his God. Immediately and everywhere. And his God has settled in each of these rooms to await man. Rooms were not closed. The man didn't even need to knock on the door. He could enter freely as often as he wished. God was ready to receive man. The Creator of heaven and earth had not settled in one room, but everywhere, so that man could always find him. He arranged these rooms very close to each other. For there should be no distance between the Creator and the creature, but only closeness and familiarity. Therefore, all these rooms were and still are links, the means and paths between God and man. But who should nurture these ties, strengthen these relationships and ensure that the doors are open? It was our reigning will in the soul that was to have the important responsibility of maintaining the order of our creation. But when man separated himself from the Divine Fiat, these links have lost their strength. Relations have loosened. The paths have been blocked and the doors were closed. Man has lost his inheritance. He was stripped of all his possessions. Not only encountered traps to make him fall, By not doing my will, man lost everything and he had nothing good left. By doing my will, he acquires everything and every good is returned to him. Look at all that the paternal goodness of the Creator has done in creation. Out of love for man, the Creator not only made many rooms, he made them different from each other. So each of his loved ones found them in different ways. In the sun, the Creator allowed himself to be clothed with light, all majesty, burning with love. He was waiting to give man his light so that he can understand it. To give man his love so that he can find his God by entering this room and become light and love. Asterisk in the sea, man could find his strong God, who gave him strength. Asterisk in the wind, he found him who reigned and dominated to give man the empire over everything. Asterisk in short, in everything created, God was waiting for man to make him participate in his qualities. After that, I said to myself, Jesus loves his will so much and it seems that he wants it so much to be known so that it can reign and dominate. But it seems difficult to me that his will is known because no one cares about it, no one is interested in it. It is only Jesus who is interested in it, but not the creatures. So, if creatures do not give glory to God and if the fullness of goods is not given to them, how can this reign of eternal Fiat be known? I was thinking of this when my sweet Jesus manifested himself within me. He said to me, "My daughter, what seems difficult to you is not difficult for God." Just as in the redemption, all human difficulties and perfidies could not stand in the way. In the course of our love, and even less to fulfill the decision by our will to come and redeem the human generation. When the divinity decides to perform an act, to perform a work, whatever the circumstances, reasons, or obstacles, it triumphs over everything, prevails over everything, and does what has been established. The culmination and most important point for God is to establish what he wants to do. Having done that, he did everything. Therefore, if it has been established in us that our will must be known and that his kingdom must come to earth, the thing is already done. The redemption was accomplished because we had established it. It will be the same for our will. Moreover, in creation, this kingdom came out of our divinity. The order was total there, for our will reigned and dominated. At the fall of man, this kingdom was not destroyed. It is intact and still exists now, but it remains suspended for man. At the redemption, I restored everything. I did everything for man to be redeemed. I also did everything to erase this suspension, so that the creature can enter the realm of the Divine Fiat. First by giving the first place to my redemption. Then, with time, to my will. It is difficult to build a kingdom, to make a work. But once it's done, it's easy to make it known. And it is not the power that your Jesus lacks. I can fail to do or not to do something. But I can never lack power. I will dispose things, the circumstances, creatures and events, which will make it easy to know my will. I really felt very sad and thought that my condition is difficult to bear. I feel like I can't continue. The divine will is inexorable, immutable. It's no joke to have to deal with your Fiat. We feel the full weight of its immutability. Who remains unperturbed and impassive in front of everything. The divine will always places you in the condition of wanting what it wants. Even the very chastisements and privations of Jesus that cost me so much. It must be given everything it asks, but as for what the soul desires, nothing should be granted to it, not even the smallest thing. I was thinking of this when my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, my will wants to be free in the soul. Therefore, she does not want to see the slightest little thing of what the soul desires. Even if this thing is holy, she doesn't want to see limits in this soul. She wants to expand her empire on everything. What my will wants, the soul must also want and it must do it. Thus, the soul feels the weight of the immutability of my will in order to become immutable and no longer be subject to change. If she sees creatures suffering or because they temporarily lack a property, it would then be to get out of its immutability. And it is human holiness. The holiness of my divine will is divine holiness. Who does not allow himself such weaknesses? If my divine will were subject to it, our justice would be lifeless in our supreme being. Which cannot be. If you knew in what condition my righteousness is in these times. If it were to unload on you, you would be crushed. My will don't want you to be crushed. But she wants the creatures to participate in her pain in order to that their eyes open and that they understand what blindness they have fallen into. All the great nations live heavily in debt. If they didn't take on debt, they wouldn't be able to live. And yet they feast and save on nothing. They are preparing wars, which causes enormous expenses. Don't you see for yourself? In what blindness and in what madness they fell? And you, my little child, would like to let my justice not strike them. That I grant them even more temporal goods so that they become even more blind and foolish. And seeing that my will does not accede to all your requests, you complain. You have the feeling that my will has taken up all the space in your soul without giving you the freedom to do anything, and you feel the strength of holiness and immutability of my divine will. I have often told you that my privations are not something else than the voids of my justice which is preparing to strike the peoples. Also, my daughter, don't be discouraged. You don't know how much I love you and how many treasures I have deposited in you. I cannot leave you, I must watch over the treasures I have placed in you. You must know that every word is a divine gift. And how many words have I not said to you? And when I make a donation, I never take it back. To be sure that my gifts are safe, I watch over them and the soul that possesses them. Consequently, let me act free and let my will reign freely in you.